limitation by opponents, and those are both cumulative. Those are not each person speaking 10 minutes. So if you have a spokesperson for your group, that's always a good idea. It's also a good idea to be prepared. It's also a really appreciated idea not to repeat things that others have said. We also have a limit of 3 minutes for rebuttal by the applicant. So please keep those time limits in mind. I do have the discretion and the ability to expand the time where it's warranted, but I would just ask you to keep in mind brevity and be persuasive. All right, deferrals. On this evening's agenda, we have a few deferrals. So if you're here for a deferred item, you can be excused. B2 for 829 Fifth Avenue is deferred. A2. Thank you, Robert. A2, 829 Fifth Avenue is deferred. B5, 842 Minnie Street is deferred. And B11, 14 12th Avenue is also. Sutfield, do you have a comment?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I just need for the record to clarify. So B5 is a late deferral by staff. We were notified late this afternoon that the sign for that particular item was put on a neighboring property and not the property in question. So we need to go back out, verify the sign is on the proper property, and that will be back before you on June 2nd. And then I did want to, in that same notice, we did get a notice that the sign for 0 Main Street had been moved. We are, based on conversation with the neighboring property owner, we do know that the sign was moved, but it was moved back essentially the same day. We do not believe that the noticing requirements for that were interrupted in any way that would prevent this item from being able to move forward this evening. So staff is deferring for technical noticing reasons B5, but B10 is still eligible to be heard this evening, and I just needed to make that clear for the record. Thank you, sir.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. We'll go right into the agenda. A, review of minutes and deferred application from previously advertised BZA-Z agendas. Number 1, review of the minutes of the May 5th, 2026 meeting. Board members, you've been circulated those draft meeting results in your packet of materials for this evening. We do have a forum to approve these minutes. Do I have a motion?
Move approval.
Move to approve. Mr. K, seconds. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? If none are opposed, the motion passes. And Mr. Goodwin abstains. He's not present. Hearing. However, we have more than enough votes to approve the A2 is deferred as stated. Now we're at V, new application, 64 Lee Street, East Side, Council District 4, TMS number 459-05-01-082, zoned DR2, BZA 2026-002355, amendment of approved variance to correct the listed encroachment. For the rear setback, 9 feet were listed, 3 feet are actual, 7 feet are required. The owner is Blue Funnel Real Estate LLC. The applicant is Louis Acosta. Mr. Summerfield.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, so we did receive in your public comment package 2 comments of support on this one. And as read, this is a correction essentially when this came in through the permit review. Somehow for the first time, someone noticed that we had a typo in the previous item and had listed it at a 9-foot setback variance when it should have said 3 feet with a 7-foot requirement. So this is just to correct the record. This is the property on Lee Street. Again, this very small infill parcel that has been a standalone lot for quite a few years. The applicant is putting a very modest small home on it. But to be clear, it always said that it was a 3-foot in the drawings. It just never said that in text, and for whatever reason, it made it all the way through the process and no one caught it until it came in for permit. So staff would ask that you approve this correction so that we could just complete the permitting process and move forward.
Okay, so this is an administrative issue that we've already approved as a board.
Correct.
And we're just correcting what I would consider to be a clerical error. Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Ms. Bass moves to approve. Is there a second? Ms. Richard seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None opposed. The motion passes unanimously and the application for 64Z Street is approved. All right, the next item on our agenda, B2, 208 Rutledge Avenue, Cannonboro, Elliotboro. Council District 6, CMS number 460-15-02-078, zone LB BZA 2026-002354, requesting the first one-year extension of vested rights that expire on June 18, 2026, pursuant to section 54-962. The extension is for a special exception granted under section 54-511 to allow 9 off-street parking spaces for a mixed-use development. The owner is Green Monster Properties LLC. The applicant is Lawrence Hayes. Mr. Summerfield.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, so this is again more of a procedural matter. This is the first one-year extension of the vested rights for this location at 208 Rutledge Avenue here at the corner of Cannon and Rutledge. Per statute, all in requests for vesting of a property after the 2-year window that they have from the initial approval, they are unless something substantive has changed in the area, they are entitled to 5 one-year extensions of those vested rights. In this case, we do not feel like anything substantive has changed with either the area or the nature of the project. And so staff is recommending for approval of this 1-year extension for this project.
Vested rights extension will require by statute to approve. Do I have a motion? Approval. Mr. Bennett moves to approve. Is there a second? Second. Mr. McKay seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion passes, and the first 1-year extension of vested rights, 208 Rutledge Avenue, is granted. Next item on our agenda, B3, 6 Moultrie Street, North Central, Council District 4, EMS number 463-15-04-007. Zone DR2F, BZA 2026-002356. Requesting a special exception under section 54-110F to extend a 0-foot non-conforming west side setback 7 feet are required to build in addition. The owner is Douglas Hickerson. The applicant is Joel Adrian, Coastal Creek Design. Mr. Summerfield.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, you can see the property here on Moultrie. It's just a little bit west of King Street. This is in the DR2F zoning, immediately adjacent though to some general business that fronts on King Street. Here you can see the aerial. The applicant is proposing to do, if I can get through some great research that they did, but you can see here the existing non-conforming area. So they are proposing to do this addition. As a result of this addition, they would be extending the existing 0 lot line configuration, which is an existing encroachment in this area. Again, this is otherwise compliant. And you can see on the various plans, demolition, removal of stairs, the adjustments that they're making, and then the eventual proposed finish there in the elevations. Again, this is a special exception to extend that non-conforming setback to build this addition. Again, nothing extravagant with this request, and staff is recommending approval of this special exception.
All right, thank you, Mr. Summerfield. Do we have anybody here in opposition to the application for 6 Moultrie Street? Seeing no one in opposition, do we have the owner or applicant present? All right, Mr. Adrian.
It's really like to say good afternoon. Maybe it's not evening yet. Usually I say good evening. Joel Adrian, Coastal Creek Design here for Douglas Hickerson at 6 Moultrie. Robert, to go to the existing survey, and I won't be long. I think that it is a relatively simple request. There is an existing historic house that had a one-story addition done in the back. That one-story addition, if you look at that, is approximately 1.5 feet on the adjacent property. And so we are going to demolish that one-story non-conforming property piece. And then the next slide will show you the part that we're looking, I guess the next slide. What we're looking to do is just build a simple two-story addition off the back of the house, restore the existing house. House is in very poor condition. We've presented everything to Historic Charleston, to preservation. Everybody seems to be on board with our approach. And we need this approval to continue to move forward. But it's going to be a single family residence. It's currently unoccupied, falling apart, but it was a duplex. It's going to go to single family. I'll answer any questions.
Did you get support from the owner adjacent to it?
So the adjacent lot is vacant, and so I did not contact them. We did send these drawings to North Central, to Stephen Rosenberg at North Central Neighborhood Association. Did not receive any information back.
Thanks.
Any other questions for Mr. Adrian?
Move approval.
All right, Mr. Bennett moves to approve. Is there a second? Ms. Grass seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion passes, and the special exception for 6 Mulberry Street is granted. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next item on our agenda, V4, 12 Motley Lane, Anstonboro, Council District 8. EMS number 458-05-01-077, zoned LB BZA 2026-002357, requesting a special exception under section 54-510 to build a detached single-family dwelling unit on a lot of insufficient size. 2,757 square feet are existing, 4,000 square feet are required. The owners are Frank and Amanda Burrito. The applicant is Julia F. Martin, architects. Mr. Summerfield.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, so you can see the property here on Motley Lane. This is just north of Pinckney Street, which is just west of East Bay. Here you can see it in the aerial. This is an existing parking lot on the street, which is otherwise pretty well developed. The proposal is to convert the existing parking area into residence. You can see here the proposed request. In order to do this, this is LB. So to do LB residential, there is a minimum lot size requirement. However, our code does provide for the special exception in order to build on this lot. We believe that this is an appropriate use for this location. And given that the applicant is able to accomplish the proposal without needing additional development standard variances or other things, we believe this is an appropriate project for this site. We'll note, so staff is recommending approval of this special exception. We'll note that after the close of public comment period, written public comment period, the applicant has provided staff with documentation indicating that they do have support from several adjacent area residents that came through via text message for 3 Motley and 5 and 8 Motley. So with that, again, staff is recommending approval of this special exception. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Robert. Do we have anybody here in opposition to the application for 12 Motley Lane? Seeing no one in opposition, do we have an owner applicant present? Anything you'd like to say? Any questions for the owner applicant? Any questions for the city? Motion. All right, Ms. Richards moves to approve. Is there a second? Mr. McKay seconds the motion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None opposed. The motion passes and the special exception for 12 Motley Lane is granted. Thank you. All right, the next item on the agenda, B5, has been deferred. The next item on the agenda, B6, 35 Stockton Drive, Old Windermere, Council District 11, PMS number 421-06-00-021, zoned SR2. BZA 2026-002359, requesting a variance from section 54-301 to build a detached ADU with a 15-foot rear setback and 6-foot west side setback, 25 feet and 9 feet are required. The owner applicant is Glenn Hamlin. Mr. Summerfield.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, so this site is here on Stockers Drive in the Old Windermere neighborhood, really mid-block here on Stockard. You can see here in the zoning footprint map that this is in the SR2 zone. Also does not have an accessory structure currently in the back. You can also see with the shape files that many of its neighboring properties do. It's important to note that this, the addition of an accessory structure here is in contact with the community. Here you can see the aerial of the property and how that is situated on the lot. You can see the aerial or the survey rather here. The proposal is to build an accessory dwelling unit in the rear of this property. It is a very modest accessory dwelling unit. It would include a unconditioned storage area that's accessible from the external portion of the building, not a part of the internal access. So they would have, again, they'd have an area, which is the best view here. So as proposed, this project would include a living area here. Again, it is an ADU, so it would have a full kitchen access, including a stove range hood, as well as a full bathroom space. But then it does have, as a part of this overall square footage, it does have this externally accessible storage area. Again, I'm making that note because we do have limitations on area for accessory dwelling units. So with that, this variance, while there is a variance here for the setbacks, that's because it can't qualify for the exceptions. But we do believe that this is an appropriate use of this property. We did receive letters of support from neighboring properties that are in your public comment packet. This is a type of property modification addition that we do want to encourage if it's done in a responsible way, which again, we believe this one is. And so staff is recommending approval of this variance for the detached ADU. However, we do have an if approved condition, and this is just going to be a standard condition that will apply anytime we have an ADU requesting a variance. Just for the record, that the proposed ADU shall comply with the conditions of section 54-214 of the zoning ordinance that outlined all of those very stringent conditions for an accessory dwelling unit. And with that, again, staff is recommending approval of this variance.
All right, thank you, Robert. Do we have anybody here tonight who wishes to speak in opposition to the application for 35 Stockard Drive? Being known in opposition, do we have the owner or applicant present? Anything you'd like to say to the board? Thank you. Any questions for the city? Any questions for the applicant?
Move for approval with
To
condition.
approve with the condition as outlined by the city. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, Mr. Bennett seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion passes. The variance for 35 Stockard Drive is granted with the conditions. Thank you. That the proposed ADU shall comply with the conditions of section 54-214 of the zoning ordinance. Thank you very much. Next item on our agenda, the 756 State Street, Coast Quarter, Council District 8, TMS number 458-05-03-108, Zone GB, Accommodations Overlay District, BZA 2026-002360, requesting a variance from section 54-317 to provide 28 off-street parking spaces for the proposed 50-unit accommodation. 34 spaces are required. The owner is 56 State SC Property LLC. The applicant is Harper, Warnock, Weatherholt, and Wilson, James Wilson. Mr. Summerfield.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, so this is located at the corner of State Street and Cumberland Street. This is an existing approved development site. This variance would, as a part of their development, they've been looking at and had originally proposed to include mechanical stackers, vehicle stackers within the part of the internal parking facility that they would be proposing as a part of this development. However, as they've continued to examine this project and been looking at comparable projects that they are connected with and that they've worked on elsewhere in the community, it is their belief that the nature of their proposed accommodations use does not require the same level of parking as our current code. We would acknowledge that our current parking standards are reflective of some older traffic engineering guidance that has existed for a while. And so as a part of the rewrite, one of the things that we are looking at is our parking standards. And so we do believe that there is the potential opportunity here for some adjustment within that standard. That said, the applicant is looking at off-site parking opportunities to accommodate a portion of their parking requirement. And then they've acknowledged that if this request becomes too intense for those off-site parking locations, then they are committed to making the necessary investment improvements internal to the hotel to add those mechanical stackers that, again, right now, based on their analysis, they don't necessarily believe would be required in terms of operationally required, regardless of what the code currently says. So with that, staff has reviewed their documentation. We have worked with the applicant on some what we feel are very good, if approved, conditions that the applicant has volunteered based on those discussions or further into this variance. The other item of consideration here is this is a variance for the parking requirements because we don't vary the off-site parking standards. That's a kind of a secondary thing in order to meet your requirements. So if you're not in compliance with the code or that option, then you're varying the parking standards. Again, technicality, this is not the only one where this is going to come up. We have a couple others in the pipeline where this would be a point. That said, staff is recommending approval of the variance for the parking with the following, if approved, conditions: that the property owner shall install 20 off-street parking spaces on site. The property owner shall provide to the city planning department a signed completed copy of the agreement for the proposed 8 off-site parking spaces. That the property owner shall provide to the city planning department documentation showing that the monthly average guest overnight parking usage number, and that should that monthly average guest overnight parking usage exceed the proposed 28 parking spaces off-street parking spaces for 3 or more consecutive months, then the planning director may require the owner to install the remaining parking as required by section 54.317. And then if the owner has installed the remaining number of off-street parking spaces as required by 54.317, then they no longer are required to provide to the department these monthly average parking overnight usage numbers. Would also mean that the variance would no longer be necessary and eventually would go away. And then if the additional parking spaces have not been installed within 5 years of the opening of the accommodations use, then we would also allow for the discontinuation of the monthly reporting requirements. And the property owner shall just provide this information should the city be notified of an issue and the city notify them to give us that information. So these would be the conditions that we would recommend as a part of our recommendation for approval. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Robert. And
I'm sorry, there were 4 comments in support of this variance with these conditions that were submitted as a part of the public comment packet.
Okay. And I'm sure we'll hear from the applicant, but it's my understanding based upon the application that these conditions were essentially proposed by the applicant, and so that they have no objection to them.
Correct, yeah, in your, in the application packet, this is a part of the narrative. It was recommended, or yes, these were suggested by the applicant after our consultation with them. And their, additionally, their work with the, French Quarter, as well. So, to satisfy, the neighboring developments as well as the staff's concerns.
And we've received no objections from any of the neighbors or neighborhood association or preservation groups.
Correct. We received 4 comments in advance of this meeting, and all 4 were in support of the request.
All right, thank you very much, Robert. Do we have anybody here in opposition to the application for 56 State Street? Seeing no one in opposition, I do see Mr. Wilson here. Anything you'd like to address?
Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to, well, I guess very briefly, and I'll let you decide how much you'd like. So I'm James Wilson with Harper, Warnock, Weather, Wilson, Wilson, here on behalf of the applicant, here with Mr. Daniel St. Clair, part of the owner group, and Mr. Chris Harvey, who's with Charlestown Hotels, who did the data collection. Just, I want to be super quick, but I will say, before we ever submitted anything, we went to the French Quarter Neighborhood Association. We weren't going to submit unless they were okay and supportive of this. They have sent their letter of support. They said that's fine. We don't see any point in just having a lot of equipment sitting around idle, doing nothing in a garage. This is all born out of the experience straight across the street of the Luttrell Hotel. This is, it's a 50-room hotel just like across the street, same ownership group. And their experience is they've got parking stackers that just sit there idle. And so the idea is that's just wasteful to have these sitting around idle. I just want to emphasize this is truly, we mean this as a deferral, meaning not a permanent waiver. What the conditions we proposed is we will report monthly to the planning department, the parking usage. And if we're short, then Mr. Summerfield just has to send us a letter saying, hey, you're short. We need you to install the additional stackers that you need. And we are, the garage is already designed, it will be built to accommodate those additional stackers. So we can always order more and put them in if needed. Mr. Harvey, who did the data, can give you guys a lot more color on that. If you'd like, I can give you a little bit more color, or I'm happy to just answer questions, whatever, Mr. Chairman, you will.
Well, let's see if the board members have any questions for you. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Wilson?
I'll make a motion for approval. I'm sorry,
I
go
have a
ahead.
question for the
Okay.
city.
Yeah,
Sure, sorry.
I just wanted to ask the city, are you concerned at all about this setting a precedent for applicants proposing conditions and then providing reports to the city?
No, so one, again, variances are site specific, so they don't in and of themselves set a precedent. That said, may not be the only application of this nature that comes for downtown, because one of the things we are examining is, and we constantly examine, is our parking requirements for particularly in downtown and these developments. And we already have within our code some language that addresses if you can provide us a parking study to show that our standard is too much for the specific nature of what you're doing, you can do an alternative parking standard. This is almost sort of a natural progression. We just don't have this option within the code framework right now. So we may see more examples of this. Hopefully in the code rewrite, we'll do it in such a way that it doesn't require the variance process. That said, no one can point to this and say, well, you let Mr. Wilson's clients do this at 56 State. And we can say, yes, we did, but we're not required to do that at your location. You have to demonstrate your conditions.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, and I would just echo that as well, just to discourage generally, the more administrative work for the city, I know we're not, looking for more administrative tasks. So, and I would suggest that, there be a recurring calendar appointment for your client because not reporting may result in, because it's a condition, may result in the loss of this variance. But anyway, let's, anybody have any questions? Any other questions for the city? Yeah. All right, anybody ready to make a motion?
I'll make a motion for approval with the special conditions identified by staff.
Thank you, Mr. McKay. Mr. McKay has made a motion to approve with conditions. Mr. Bennett, I heard, second the motion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion passes with the conditions. The variance is approved with those conditions. As are stated in the staff approval, the staff report, and we will append those conditions to the. Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Thank you. All right. The next item on our agenda is the 1220 Hobart Avenue, Maryville, Ashleyville, Council District 7, TMS number 418-05-00-027, zoned LB, BZA 2026-002363. Requesting variance from section 54-301 to build an ADU with a 56-foot front setback, 70 feet are required. Owners are Warren and Thomas Holiday. The applicant is Thomas Holiday. Mr. Summer.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, so you can see that this is on a somewhat irregularly shaped lot here on this kind of quarter pie shaped block in the Maryville, Ashleyville area. It's also within an area that is got a mix of GB and LB zoning on it. That said, it is a residential use of that LB property, whereas the other properties on the block are used in their commercial capacity. So as a part of this residential use of the property, the applicant is requesting to be able to situate an ADU on the lot. Because again, if you look here, the lot does not have the depth necessary to accommodate our standard, which is really intended to ensure that an ADU or any secondary structure is set back further than the house and is clearly incidental to the principal use of the structure. Here's a floor plan of what they're proposing, and again, some just basic design of what the envelope that they're proposing. You can see, you can see here on the survey / site plan where they would be proposing to build the ADU. So they have some sheds here. The ADU would go here. They're going to be able to accommodate the additional parking for the ADU on site as well. And then this site, we did not receive any public comment related to this application. Again, we do believe that there is some unique factors with the relationship of the lot, the fact that this is the only residential use on this block in terms of the fact that it's a commercial zoning block, but this particular property is being utilized for residential. Again, in general, the city would like to encourage creative use of ADUs on residential property where appropriate. We believe that this can be done in a way on the site that is respectful of the community, of the neighborhood, while also achieving some of the city goals around the introduction of the ADU ordinance. And with that, staff is recommending approval of this setback variance with the standard, if approved, condition that the proposed ADU shall comply with the conditions set forth in section 54-214 of the zoning ordinance. And again, that's the laundry list of requirements for covenants and restrictions. If you're going to rent the ADU, the fact that it cannot be rented unless it's the property's owner occupied. or tenant occupied. And that you can't rent it out to two different tenants, like you can have a tenant of the property and they can use the ADU, but you can't have a tenant for the home and a tenant for the ADU. It's not a multifamily development. It is still a single family residential use with the ability to have the accessory dwelling unit. So with that, staff is recommending approval of this variance.
All right, thank you, Robert. Do we have anybody here in opposition to the application for 1220 Hobart Avenue? Seeing no one in opposition, do we have the owner or applicant present? All right, anything you'd like to say on the board? Sure. Okay, questions?
I have a question. I'm just confused by the layout. If you could, yeah, so the ADU is on the side and that 56 feet is where?
There was an error in Mr. Summerfield's statement. The proposed ADU is up here
Yes, sir.
in this area, and these are the two parking spaces as indicated by the
I'm
applicant.
sorry.
Okay,
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
No, that's okay.
It's been a longer day, and when I was looking at this, I did confuse. Yes, the parking is here. What I meant to say, and then where the sheds are is where the ADU would be.
And it'll be just one building, the
Yes.
ADU. is
Yes,
one building.
it's a structure essentially like this.
Okay, sorry.
Ideally, when they come for permitting, they will have more appropriate on with that.
Yeah.
And that's the 56 feet.
Yes, it would be this distance here. Sorry, I
That's
apologize.
okay, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Anything you'd like to say, or are you just here to answer
I
questions?
was just here to answer any questions.
Okay, anybody have any questions for the applicant?
Make a motion for approval.
I have Mr. Bennett moves to approve. There's a second. Goodwin seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None opposed. Motion passes. With the condition that the ADU will conform to the section 54-P1 for the zoning.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. So we are now moving on to B9, 2204 Mount Pleasant Street, Kiowa Homes, Council District 4. EMS number 464-13-00-028, zone GB. BZA 2026-002361, requesting a variance from section 54-301 and section 54-824. We requested to create a new parcel with a lot area of 1,800 square feet, 2,500 square feet are required. A frontage of 32 feet, 40 feet are required. The owner is Mark Gibbons, the applicant is McNair Design and Development, Mr. Summerfield.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, so you can see the property here is on Mount Pleasant Street. It's just a little west of Rutledge Avenue. You can see that this property has multiple from the footprint on the zoning map. You can see that it does have multiple buildings on the site. And it is inserted kind of into the multifamily ER for zone and residential development. Kind of immediately behind it here on Mount Pleasant. This side of Mount Pleasant is obviously a different configuration than the residential neighborhoods and blocks that you see south of Mount Pleasant Street. Here you can see the aerial that you do have a very different structure in terms of you have a historic commercial structure here, and then you have multiple residential use structures, or again, visually residential structures there. You can see here on the survey a little more detail about the site and how it's currently configured in terms of the one-story block here, and then you have a one-story block building back here. Again, more in a residential setting, and then you have the two-story wood framed here again in a residential configuration. The proposal would be to create a lot so that they can create opportunity for a new parcel here that would be able to then be converting the commercial looking building to a single family home that would then be available for private ownership in a fee simple approach versus trying to do a horizontal property regime, which would get into condos and HOA type fees and everything else. So it would be to allow for an opportunity for a single family lot here, where right now you have because of the GB, you do have a commercial building, but it is not a commercial building that is in use and has not been in use for some time. So that's what the applicant is proposing to do here. It is a variance because it would be creating a lot of insufficient size. And it would allow for a street frontage of 32 feet, 40 feet would be the requirement, given the zoning conditions. However, given the unique nature of the lot, the fact that this is a lot that was platted and developed quite a long time ago, well before any of our current subdivision and zoning standards would apply, and in acknowledgement of what the applicant is trying to do in terms of create an opportunity for what amounts to an infill residential development, staff is recommending approval of this request.
All right, thank you, Robert. Do we have anybody here in opposition to the application for 2204 Mount Pleasant Street? Seeing no one in opposition, do you have the owner or applicant?
Davis Victor, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. McNair. Any questions?
I had one. I'm just curious, it looks like the plan is to demolish the existing building on that lot. Is there, I just want to make sure I understand, we're not approving necessarily anything related to that existing, would they be going backwards?
Correct. They will have to address any provisions, and I cannot recall if this had, this is north of line, obviously. Cannot recall if this was in demo purview for BAR or DRB, because Mount Pleasant, parts of Mount Pleasant, I think, are within the commercial corridor. That said, no, this variance would not authorize any demolition. All it would authorize is the ability for the applicant to move forward through the mapping process to create a new lot that would be eligible for a future single family residential development to be built on this site once they got whatever additional necessary approvals they would need with regard to the existing building.
That answers my question. Thank you, Robert.
Robert, with regard to parking, would that leave sufficient parking for the other buildings on the side?
That is correct. It provided 2 on-site parking spaces for the unit.
Any other questions?
A motion for approval.
All right, Mr. Bennett moves to approve. Is there a second? Mr. Grass seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion passes unanimously and the variance for 2204 Mount Pleasant Street is granted. Thank you, Mr. All right, next item on our agenda, B10, 0 Main Street, Maryville, Astorville, Council District 9. GMS number 418-07-00-133, zoned SR2, BZA 2026-002362, requesting a special exception under section 54-501 and a variance from section 54-301 to build a detached single-family dwelling unit on a lot of insufficient size, 2,773 square feet existing, 6,000 square feet are required, with a 4-foot north side and a 4-foot south side setback, 9 feet or both are required. The owner is Charleston Affordable Development. The applicant is Ford Smith. Mr. Summerfield.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, so you can see the property here on Main Street. It is a lot, again, this is platting that was done some time ago. This is not any type of recent platting. It allowed for the carve out of the flag lot, for that larger lot, the 1035 Main Street, to the rear. So this is an existing lot within the zoning district, that would otherwise allow for a single family residence to be constructed on this lot. It does put us in the, unique position of, again, we have a plotted, otherwise legally established lot in terms of it was legally subdivided. However, the zoning that we have attached to it with the SR2 would make it significantly difficult to develop and meet any SR2 development standards, which is why the item is before this Board of Adjustment this evening. Here you can see on the aerial kind of how this lot is positioned in front of the existing home. This is not, to be perfectly honest, this is not an enviable development site. However, again, it is an independent lot that has been subdivided and is within the zoning district and eligible for development. So the applicant is proposing the site for a single family detached home, generally taking advantage of the existing narrowness of the lot to, or not advantage, but addressing the narrowness of the lot, while they are not able to accommodate what would amount to 18 feet of setback between the two side setback requirements. They are still proposing at least a 4-foot setback in each of those regards. They are being mindful of the rear, again, proximity of the existing home to the rear of that lot that has been subdivided out. So they are maintaining the rear setback. However, in order to maintain the rear setback and not go back potentially further there, as well as the front setback, they are proposing to encroach within those two side setback requirements. They are proposing a 2-story home. Again, the variance itself would not limit them to this design. However, this is essentially the design context that they are proposing. Staff is recommending approval for the special exception to build a detached single family home. Again, acknowledging the fact that this is a much smaller lot than we see typically in Maryville, Ashleyville, when we have these lots of insufficient size. Normally, the lot size is somewhere in the 5-ish thousand range, versus the zoning that we put in place well after the community had been platted, that would normally require the 6,000 square foot. This is just in my opinion, an unfortunate circumstance of a legacy where the property had been allowed to be subdivided previously. Again, as a result of that, the building envelope here is such that the proposed variance request for the two side setbacks seems more appropriate than a request for a rear or front setback. And so again, in order to develop on this site, some give feels as if it would be necessary, and this seems a reasonable approach. So staff is recommending for the variance for the what amounts to the north and south side setbacks for a proposed single family detached dwelling on this location.
All right, thank you, Robert. Does anybody here have any opposition to the application for 0 Main Street? And we've got a few people in opposition. We'll hear from the.
How y'all doing? Ford Smith. Just like Mr. Summerfield said, it's very small lots, 29 feet wide. Normally we don't ask for any variances at all, because we're aware the neighborhood is not a fan of them. Kept our front setback, our back setback. Unfortunately, without any variance on this property, the physical house would be 10 foot wide, which to most standards is not livable. We're proposing a 1,596 square foot home, which is fairly modest sized house, 3 bedroom, 2.5 bath. If you zoom in, which I know it's kind of hard to see, but the home itself is 19, and basically 10 out of 12 inches wide, slightly under 20. Requesting the setbacks go down from 9 to 4. Really the only way to achieve any sort of residence there. Obviously keeping plenty of off-street parking. We know the neighborhood has mentioned stuff about parking constraints, people parking on the street. We always want to make sure that it has at least 2 parking spots, as Ms. Marsha Higgins always likes to see. Same with staying within the front and back setback. I have met with the community, that being Ms. Higgins and several neighbors, which are here tonight. 2 times at the property now, one yesterday and one earlier in the week. I brought all the plans out there, spoke to them. Some of the opposition that I heard was that we were building in front of one gentleman's residence, which I do hear that. We did not plat the lot. I would imagine that a property owner at some point of all that property probably did. I understand in today's zoning district, you couldn't subdivide that lot into that size, which I want to make that apparent, because I think the worry with approving this from the community is that these skinny lots of 29 foot wide are going to be popping up all over the neighborhood as new subdivided lots. Obviously, that's not possible. Just like creating a flag lot like behind it is not possible in the zoning code currently for this particular zoning. But we look forward to working with the community, as always, trying to build a product that a nice new family could move into, and being respectful along the way. We've kept the height under the 30 feet, which Ms. Higgins always asks for. I'm trying to respect that, and just ultimately trying to build a modest product on a lot that is underused currently and could make way for a young family. Happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Smith. Any questions for Mr. Smith? All right, thank you, sir. We'll maybe hear from you again.
Yeah, appreciate it.
All right, anybody else who wishes to speak in support of the application? Seeing no one else in support, we'll hear from anyone in opposition.
Good evening. I'm Marsha Higgins, President of the Maryville Asheville Neighborhood Association. And yes, we do oppose approval of this project. As you note, the address is 0 Main Street. That means that this property really never even had an address. The history of this property is it's a very large piece of property that was subdivided. The question is, when was it subdivided? Now, we don't know. We didn't have time to really research it like we wanted to. But when was it subdivided? Based on the information we have, it was subdivided probably sometime after the year 2022. The owner of the home died and left the property to her son. And our understanding is he was the one who subdivided it. So that's a question that we would like answered. When was the property subdivided? That's very significant and important, for us. Because it's a large piece of property. I don't know the exact measurements of it. The initial property is very large. It was subdivided, and this is the smallest lot on the property that was subdivided. Now they want to go first with this one to build on. We said, well, why do you want to go first with this one? It's very small, and actually, based on our knowledge, a house was there on one side of where he wants to build with a garage. The property he wants to build on was actually a driveway to that house. with some property on the side. So it's really very, very small. And of course, as he mentioned, it would be in front of an existing house that's already there. So that's a part of our objection. And then the variance also. It's just that we can't really picture, a house being there because the property is so small. Surrounding properties on the street, all are much larger than 50 by 100. And so that actually this little small house on this little small property would actually be out of place. We ask that we want now affordable houses in our community, and that these small lots, there are not many of them left, but these small lots, if they could be used for affordable housing, have made that request to the city, because it just makes sense that these very small lots are used for smaller homes. The houses now, the new houses that are being sold, I'm not gonna say it all the time, the new houses that are being sold in the Maryville, Asheville community, the price range is from $600,000 to $800,000. And these are recently built homes. And so that's what we're looking at, that the small lots be used to build affordable housing. However, this one is really not in good condition for any type of housing. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Ms. Higgins. Anybody else who wishes to speak in opposition?
Good evening. My name is Dennis Ford. I'm the owner of that house that's in back. And so hope you allow me to be a little redundant because that was the first house I bought in Charleston. I lived in that house probably 8 years, and then my wife and I moved on, and we kept the house. The prior owner, well, the son that owned the lot. That picture, you see the house that was there, you can see it. He tore that house down. And that's a reflection of it now. And it encroached just a bit, the little garage, and it was on the street. So it was a lot of distance between the house and my house. The house that he's trying to build now is directly in front of my house. It's a 2-story house. And so I did a little research. I didn't have time. I just found out about it just late last week, and we met. Ford did meet with me, and I did have a chance to talk with him yesterday. And he understands how I feel. I don't see how the board even approves of this or recommends approval, because I have just a couple of things. I said, so the developer has less than half the required space. There's about 54% deficit. And this lot is fundamentally unbuildable for a 2-story home. But that's the first thing I have to say as an argument. I also want to say that it's a self-created hardship. So he knew when he bought this property that it was undersized. It was extremely undersized. And he knew that when he bought the property. So that's not a hardship. That's a self-created hardship. And also I understand for it to be a hardship, it has to have some legitimate barrier, like a boulder or something where it's just a small lot. And he purchased the lot, and that lot was created. It was a full lot. That house was part of that lot. The owner made that small lot, and that shouldn't even, so he made a small lot in front of the house. that really created the whole problem, and the city allowed him to make that small lot. They shouldn't, it was one parcel of land. And they let him make this small lot directly in front of that house. Now, I have some pictures, that house right there has a picture window in front of it. And if you build it, that's a that's a one-story house. If you build it, I mean, you can see if you build a two-story house, right? I took some pictures, I put some balls, some basketballs, and I took a picture from the window. I mean, it's gonna take away all my shade. I mean, it's gonna create a shaded area in front of the house, and I have people living there, and it's just, it's really ridiculous to build a house there.
So show me I think I know which one it is that you own, but can you point it out to me on the screen, please?
This is my property here. It's like,
Yeah,
you
that's
call
what
it
I
a flag post or flag.
So you don't occupy it now? Do you rent it?
I do.
Okay, and then, so was this smaller lot that we're here about today subdivided from the lot where the house that you own is today?
No.
Okay, what was the larger lot that it was subdivided from?
Can you put up the picture?
Yeah.
That's it. That whole section. So this was the house. And this section here was the garage area. And it was, if you can see, it's way more up to the street. It was more on the street side. And really with that distance, it really, you could see the house very clearly.
So it was a portion of the lot where 1033 Main
Exactly.
Street sits. Okay.
That whole rectangle there was part of this lot.
Okay, and yours was always
Same, right.
that shape, the flagpole.
Right, and so from my understanding, that whole community is like a historic district,
Right.
if you're aware.
Yeah.
And it was that whole,
I've been educated by Miss Higgins.
right, that whole area was like family owned. And so that house that was built in the back was built after the house was built in the front. And it was all family. Again, I feel like, just to say one more time, I feel like the buyers bought that house knowing that because they're still working in the area. They knew that it was a small lot. And they created the hardship, and it really caused a detriment to me as a homeowner. And that's, so I strongly oppose.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your comments. Anybody else who wishes to speak in opposition? Yes, sir.
My name is John Paul. I've been up here 5 times about the village. That's my house right next door. 1039.
1039, okay.
Yes. That right there. And it looks like a far distance away from the way it is, but it's not. That's like 6 foot. This driveway, Dennis's driveway is like 6 foot, 8 foot away from my property line. Now, what happened, just for a little history on it, my grandfather owned all of that. Okay. And he gave, where you see the house 1033, he gave that lot to my aunt and uncle when they got married. He actually lived in that house where I'm at when he built that. When my cousin moved from Knoxville, Tennessee, I think, they gave her that house, that lot right there, to build that house. And she built this house. But they gave her was in front of that in the driveway. He said, that's it. And that's what made this. Okay. So he used to call us the tennis court one time. So now my objection is and has been, you're allowing substandard houses in Asheville, inundating us. They'll put there's 2 houses on 5th Avenue. One they're working on, and the last one I spoke about on 5th Avenue. And it's just like stuck in the bushes. It's terrible. It's eyesore to me. It's eyesore. And now we even getting smaller. That's 1/3 of what the standard houses should be in Ashleyville. 1/3. And like you said, and I don't want to be redundant, it's historical, and we're trying to keep it the way it was. And I'm here every so often saying, when we go to the father, right here was bought out. Okay, and they're getting ready to stick some substandard size houses there. So it's popping up everywhere. And I'm here to ask, I'm strongly opposing this one, but I'm here to ask to help us preserve. Because as long as you got trees, it seems like, okay, that's a lot, let's stick something in there, let's stick something in there. And that's what's happening all throughout the village. And it's becoming an eyesore. If you look at it, nobody has, on Fifth Avenue, what is it, Tripe Street, they put 3 houses together, nobody has a yard, really. They got something in front of the house, none in the back. Like the Oaks. You can push the lawnmower 2 times between each house, that's it. And that's what we want that to stop. And we're asking y'all, and I asked one time, please don't let them set a precedent. Or we could stick any size house in there, actually, so we'll be fine. So I strongly oppose this, and everything else is coming that way.
All right, anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Aurelia Carr Olverson, and my brother, my neighbor, my family, and I'm opposed to it. And I'm not trying to be that stick in the mud that says, let's not make changes and everything. But obviously, I grew up here. I went away into the military for 22 years. I retired, and then I went into corporate America for 8 years, and I survived. And then I moved back home, and I'm out in Adams Run now, but I stay very plugged into what's going on in the Ashleyville area because that's my home. And one thing that I say, I take all of Charleston as my home. And when I came back 33 years after I left, and I literally got lost downtown trying to get somewhere because this place is nothing like what it was. I actually got to my first duty station one day before Hurricane Hugo hit. And I understand change had to happen because things were torn apart. But I think it's a bit much now. We have grown beyond our size. The roads are just saturated. It's embarrassing how the traffic is now. It reminds me very much of the Washington, D.C. area from where I came as my last duty station. And this is not our quaint Charleston anymore. And so if I can stand in the way and say I oppose to something else coming and crowding out any of the green spaces that we have left, then I stand up and say, enough, please, Uncle, mercy, or whatever we're supposed to get on our knees and say. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. All right, anybody else who wishes to speak up? Anyone else in opposition? You got an opportunity.
I want to first say, appreciate all y'all coming out again. It was a pleasure meeting with all of you guys the other day. I want to mention a couple things because I hear the comments. I understand Mr. Ford's rental property is this house. And I do want to draw attention that there is another lot behind his house. Okay, so somebody eventually could come along and build there too, given the correct variances. Right here is another lot. Obviously, there's some oaks, there's the water, you're gonna have some critical line, you're gonna have some issues, but I think a family just bought that to build a house, and I'm sure they'll be eventually seeking a variance. One particular solution I could see of bringing, well, I want to first say this space between his home and our lot is probably around 8 to 10 feet. I didn't measure it, but it's a decent amount of space, not a lot by any means. You do have an additional 25 feet. So the home would land, back of the home would land around there. So there is a decent amount of space between the two homes. The only way that there could get more space, as he mentioned, the home that was there before was brought all the way to the street, probably similar to Mr. Carr's property in 1033 Main would to be to, you know, grant some sort of approval based on the home, you know, being moved forward to be equal with the other existing residences on the street. Which I mentioned while I was over there to Marcia, but she said we do not want the front setback being pushed back. So that's why I haven't asked for that. I'm trying to stick to the rules as much as possible. But I understand nobody wants a house built in front of their house. But there is potential right now that it's about 35 foot away and that it could even grow further. And I truly do believe even a one-story home will block the house in some which shape or form. Another thing I'm hearing is affordable housing, but we don't want smaller homes on smaller lots. I'm not saying that I can bring in affordable housing that's not subsidized by the city in any way, shape, or form. But what I'm saying is a smaller home is more affordable than a bigger home. Okay. And this is a smaller home. This will be one of the smaller new construction homes in the neighborhood at 1,596 square foot. Recently, there was one built on Maryville's side that was 2,700 square feet. Okay. And that's the one Miss Marshall's mentioned that sold for $799. A company out of Charlotte built it. So this would be a more affordable home. Would it be affordable housing? Obviously not, unless there's some sort of grants from the city. But I'm hearing affordable housing, smaller homes, but we don't want smaller homes. So it's kind of confusing to achieve that. Also, the lot prices in there have gone up. They've gone up quite a bit, which the benefit of that is residents and heirs being able to cash in on their inherited or bought property they once got. I don't know how you'd be able to tell, say, Mr. Ford, if you own this property, because I know you mentioned at one point you wanted to purchase it. If someone were to tell you, you know, your property is deemed worthless and you cannot build on it because it is slightly too small, although this was a lot that was platted. Also, in fact, a two-story, Mr. Carr's house, you know, beautiful house, beautiful residence, is a two-story home. On top of that, I'm also hearing the green spaces. We don't want the green spaces to go away. These particular green spaces that are platted are people's property. You know, if they wish to sell them or wish to build a home, the green spaces unfortunately could go away. Obviously, there's public parks, and I'm sure some people will never build on their properties. And I love green space. But, you know, I'm also a realist in the sense of you can't force somebody who owns, let's just say that this is somebody's property and it's green space right now that eventually they may not want to build a house there someday. And I understand it is rapidly changing. All I can do as a person who does build homes is try to communicate with the community, contribute where I can, and be vocal, meet with them, and not be some out-of-town developer coming in who just doesn't give a crap. I'm from here. I'm born and raised. My office is in North Charleston. I'm in the neighborhood all the time. I always take time to meet with Marcia or any community members. I understand the lot is not of ideal size, but there is a purpose for this lot, and the purpose, you know, that I believe is for another family to have a home. Those are my comments.
All right, thank you, Mr. Smith.
One question for Mr. Smith. What's the story with the neighboring property to the south? There's not anything on it. Have you spoken to the owner?
The property right here.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's composed of 3 different properties that has High Street running through it. And the whole survey thing with it is like a complete mess. So I don't know if you're aware, but High Street technically runs through all these properties. And the city is yet to kind of determine if it's been abandoned or not been abandoned. You can't see it here, but if you look on the original plat, it goes like this. It stops right here at the end of High Street. These are 3 lots that are for sale currently. But it goes through the back of all these properties.
I'm sorry, my question was about 1033. I just didn't know if you'd spoken to the owner, maybe.
Yeah, so
catch it.
The owner's also Charleston Ford Affordable Development on this property. Yeah.
You own it?
I'm a part owner of property.
So can you tell me, would you like to address Mr. Ford's comment about knowing that the property had these issues regarding development and maybe it being a self-created hardship?
I could understand that, but I also can understand that the original owner put the property up for sale. When I bought it, did I know it's of insufficient size? Every single property more or less that comes up for sale in Maryville is 50 by 100. They all are of insufficient size. In terms of the actual variance issue, there was no survey when we bought the property. We did not know that it's 30 foot or what the size may have been. In terms of a self-created hardship, I understand in their eyes it could look like that, and I know there's no pity on the developer anyways, and I'm not asking for that. All I'm saying is there's a lot of insufficient size. We'd be happy to build a smaller home on there, as that's all you can fit, more than 30 feet away from the brick ranch. And, you know, I understand everybody's concerns, but you know, this was a platted lot that somebody did at some point for some reason, whether it was the brick house owner originally was going to give it to another family member to build a house. I don't know.
So do you have plans for the adjacent lot to
Not at the
develop?
moment. But as I said, you have High Street running through it. We haven't heard anything from the city in terms of it's abandoned, it's not abandoned. For that particular lot, you could either build one house, or if High Street was, say, reinstated, which I don't know if it's ever been reinstated or not reinstated, that there's potentially, you know, the original plat has it as 3 properties right there. But again, the survey's a mess. The city, which maybe you guys could shed some light on it, doesn't really know about High Street, what's going on with it. But it is on the original plat.
Do you know when you bought that lot and who you bought it from?
Yeah, I bought it from Houston Car Properties, which I imagine is related to John. So one of the original owners is who I bought it from.
That's the guy who cut it up and we didn't know anything about it.
Gotcha.
He did it illegally.
And he may have, my thought is maybe it was in Charleston County at one point and they subdivided it and then it got annexed in. So they're saying, no, that definitely didn't happen. Obviously, you guys could check your records to know what went down. I understand the lot's not of great size, and I know, you know, I just give you an example. So Rosemont, which is in the city of Charleston off the neck, you know, the majority of lots in there are 30 by 100. And they're still plenty big to build a very good product for a family. I built a lot in North Charleston, Union Heights, just close to downtown. Again, that's North Charleston, not city of Charleston. All the lots in there are 30 by 100 or 25 by 100. Still plenty big enough to build a nice size home for someone who can get into a neighborhood like Maryville or Asheville. That's, you got a dock, you got a park, you got all this. It's a beautiful community. I mean, it's one of the best communities in the city of Charleston, and someone can get in here and get a more affordable new construction home. I know the residents see it from a different way of, we don't want anything built, and I understand that. I live on Johns Island, so I get it. You know, it's getting built up the wazoo. So I understand. All I can do is, you know, try to come with a solution and, you know, try to make some peace along the way. Me and Marcia, I wouldn't say we're enemies at all. We talk a good bit. I built a good bit of property in there. And ultimately, I do believe that it's a reasonable ask. And, you know, if there was a way to bring the house forward, we can bring the house forward. What we can't do, I mean, you could maybe shrink the setbacks to being where the house is 16 foot wide, but anything under 16 foot wide is truly just not very livable. 10 foot wide is not livable. 10 foot wide is smaller than the average bedroom width.
Did you consider a single story to fit in better with the character of the house behind it?
I think just a single story house, unless there was some variance on front and back setbacks, would only be about 600 to 700 square foot. So you're talking like a 2-bedroom home, still going to block the gentleman's property behind. Yeah, not 100% opposed to it, but I don't think it's the highest and best use for the property.
Do you think there'd be some value in some further discussions with the community on this?
I've met with them several times. I would meet with them 100 times over, and I'm more than happy to do so. I've heard them loud and clear on their stance on it. You know, if they would be up for further discussion, I'm always up for further discussion. But I hear that, you know, they do not want anything built here ever, you know what I mean?
I have a question for the city. Did the city consider at all, Mr. Smith's idea of moving the house all the way up closer to the street to give more space in between those two properties?
Yeah, so we do have some discretion with the front setback for context. As you look at this, we'd have to have some conversations about that because that context is really broken up by the removal of the neighboring property. Even though we do show that's still on the footprint, you then have the vacant lot next, you have the driveway, and then you have the long, what would amount to a driveway to the other flag lot. And then you have the gentleman's property that is built forward. I don't think from a city perspective, we necessarily have an objection to that to provide greater distance, particularly because the zoning does allow for a two-story home here. And so understanding that that is within the property owner's request. The only concern we would then have is how are they going to supply the two on-site parking spaces, which again is also an issue that we often hear from the community, particularly as it relates to any of these lots that have been platted before our current lot standards apply. So I would be interested to see how they would accommodate that. Again, I mean, I think one of the comments and one of the things is if there was an opportunity to work with the neighboring property owner, since that is a driveway, and create the ability for an access easement, and then maybe move the house forward and park to the rear, where again, that would provide, I don't know that they want to look out on parking spaces, but it would provide some additional space between the proposed home and put that more towards the street. And again, this would be the ideal situation for shared driveway access. Again, that can't be made a requirement. That would be a part of, and I think Mr. McKay was kind of aiming toward, is there an opportunity to maybe defer for a meeting or so to allow some additional discussion, maybe to allow some additional conversation about the fact that this is technically a viable lot. It is under private ownership. It is in an SR2 neighborhood. So, you know, it does have the right to request to be able to build on it. But is the current configuration, or is there some other options? And I think, you know,
do we have any history on the prior subdivision?
So Chris was able to look some of that up. Unfortunately, the most recent, and I'll be perfectly blunt and honest, I'm not quite sure how it is in the current configuration because that doesn't match exactly the mapping that we were able to find in our research. We do know that this is the mapping because this is what is recorded by the county presently, but we weren't able to necessarily track all of that down. To Mr. Ford's point, or Mr. Smith's point, our records do show that there was the expectation of High Street to go through all of these properties and continue forward. The record is not clear on how all of this came to be. Clearly, we do not have any variance requests that came through the city and were approved to allow for any of this current subdivision. To the neighbor's point, this has been the city of Charleston, so this is not one of those scenarios that we have had where it was subdivided in the county and then got annexed into the city and we inherited something else. And the record is not clear on how this came to be this way, but this is the lot configuration as the county, because the RGIS records come from the county. So our parcel data comes from the county.
So this is what is currently recorded with the county, but yet our records don't show how it got there.
Okay,
If
and
that
then, and the owner.
Makes it clear as mud.
Yeah, so the owner is Charleston Affordable Development. And
Yes.
Are you, Mr. Smith, is that an LLC?
Yeah, I'm like a member, one of a couple members.
Okay, so you've got a membership interest in the LLC.
And I'm
so
like
you've
just
got,
the representative essentially of
right,
just talking.
okay, so you've got some equity ownership in the.
Yes, a small.
Okay, so when did your entity purchase the property?
Yeah. Oh, Mr. Ford the other day, what did I say it was? I looked on the statement. I told you it was.
When did you purchase?
Yeah, I told you.
You, I don't know when.
Well, I told you, I mean, I'll have to look it up. I think it was probably 5 months ago. something
Okay,
like
so
that. Yeah,
relatively
fairly
recent.
recently, yeah.
I got
I was just looking for an exact date because he would ask me about it. I will say, just on another note, I just looked up what the average size of a parking space is. You know, say the lot is 29 feet wide. An average parking space is 9 feet, 9 feet wide by 20 foot long. Okay, 18 to 20 foot long. So you could still achieve 2 parking spots side by side, bringing the setback an additional 5 foot forward. Anything after that, you probably would not be able to achieve 2 parking spots. So if it's at 25 now, if you brought it to 20, you could still achieve 2. If you brought it to 18, you could still achieve 2. Anything after that, you could not achieve 2.
According to the county records, this property transferred from the Houston Carr Moore Properties LLC to Charleston Affordable Development in December of 2025.
Roughly 5 months.
Okay. All right, well, this feels like the cake is in the oven. It hadn't been.
I get it. I do think,
Yeah, let's let Mr. Smith finish and then I'll hear one more comment from you and then we're gonna shut it down.
I do think a possible solution, because like I probably would have proposed that the property come forward even more, but I know how strict we've all been about, you know, hey, we can't do anything with the setbacks. We'll come forward as far as can be. I mean, if we came forward to 20, maybe even 19 feet, and we could do an additional study to see what really is the minimum for 2 parking spots. And again, your 2 parking spot average width is 18. Yeah, this would be 29. So you still got extra width. We could bring it forward as far as possible, where right now we're 35 feet off of his property. We could probably get that to 42 feet, and that's quite a lot of distance away from the front of his house.
Okay, well, we welcome thoughts and ideas, but I do want to hear from Ms. Higgins
Yes, ma'am.
very briefly, and then we're gonna.
Okay, but-
move on.
Mr. Summerfield,
Yes, ma'am.
with all due respect, I do feel that this property needs to be reviewed. Because, as was mentioned, it used to be, belong to the Houston family. Now, the subdivision of it is in question. When was the subdivision done? It could not have been done probably after 2022, because that's when the owner, Joyce Houston Moore, passed. She left the property to her son, and he was the one who did all of this. So I really think that a close review needs to be made of this total property. Now, the Charleston Affordable Development, Fort Smith is Charleston Affordable Development. You see, he's that company. And they own the other properties that the Houston had. It was one big piece of property. Then it was subdivided. That whole property needs to be reviewed. And this small property that's in question now, no house should be built on that property. It's too small. It's just too small. And so, and Ford Smith and I, we have a good relationship. And we do. We communicate. He has built quite a few houses in Asheville. And so with this one, It's not appropriate.
No, I know, I've seen Mr. Smith here before, and I've seen you not object to requests. that
Yeah,
he's made, so I
so
don't.
we have a good relationship and we consider, things that he wants, not only him, but others too, executively.
Well, I would encourage you to keep up that mutual dialogue, that mutual respect, because I think it goes a long way. I don't think this one is quite ready to be decided, but you all can make your own decision about it. I would like to give the parties additional time, and I would like to give the city a little bit of time to understand how this lot came to be subdivided and what we're doing here. That seems awfully small. I get it, the LLC owner purchased it. I'm sure they purchased it. I'm sure it's a platted lot. I'm sure that they didn't do anything wrong when they purchased it. I'm just a little flummoxed as to how it even came to be. So I'll entertain a motion if somebody else agrees with me.
Sure, I just have one quick question, Mr. Summerfield. If we defer this, what is their timing and procedure to come back to the room?
So technically, it could come back as early as the June 2nd meeting. However, given the potential messiness of trying to unwind and figure out how the current configuration exists, I would ask that we give it at least until the second meeting in June.
I agree.
I think we need a full 30 days. The second meeting in June would be June 16th. So my request would be that any deferral motion be that this item come back on the June 16th or later meeting. So that staff has the opportunity to do as the chairman just suggested. Again, I think there's been some comments made today that help us understand that the city's current records did not demonstrate in our review leading up to this evening's hearing.
Right. Okay, anybody want to make a motion?
I'll move for deferral to the June 16th meeting at earliest. Or
Okay,
place.
so thank you, Ms. Grass. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Ms. Richards seconds the motion. Again, the motion on the table is to defer this item for no less than 30 days. That gets us to June 16th.
Technically later, less than 30 days, but 2 meetings from now, no earlier or sooner than 2 meetings from now.
That's pretty far.
Date after that?
That would be July something because we don't have
It's gonna be
the first meeting in
mid-July.
July.
We don't have an early July meeting.
I may be out of town. I guess I could just, I'm visiting my grandpa somewhere around there. I don't know when, but if I am, I guess I could just email you.
We'll work with you on schedule.
Yeah, just you'll work with Chris on confirming a date and then we will agendize that. And we'll make sure that Ms. Higgins and the neighborhood association are aware. And I know she has a network to make sure that gets out and the property will be, a new sign will be posted.
Appreciate it.
All right. We got the motion on the floor. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None opposed. The motion passes. The matter is deferred. Till at least, it is a 16.
You guys.
All right, thank you all.
Mr. Smith, if in relationship to any conversations you have with the neighbors or re-looking at it, if there's going to be revised plans, just please be notified that we will need those.
Prior to the meeting.
At least 10 days prior to the meeting so that we can adequately update the record, review them, update our status or a staff report or anything with any of that additional information.
Yeah, I'll stick with them. Then I guess you guys can look into it. You would potentially consider bringing the, with the existing residents not there, because I know the setbacks.
Yeah.
Are based off. So, the residences that are. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
So can I say something? I mean, so he's supposed to have a 3-minute rebuttal. I didn't use all my time. I just have one thing. May I say one thing? I'm the homeowner.
I know, but the item is closed. It's been deferred. Okay, we'll hear from you next time, okay? You'll have another opportunity because nothing's happened. It hasn't passed. All right, the next item on our agenda. Has been deferred. Now we're at B12. 975 and 989 Morrison Drive, East Central, Council District 4, TMS number 459-01-01-083-001, Zone UP, BZA 2026-002364. Request appeal for reconsideration of a board decision denying a variance from section 54-299.25. The owner is Scott Fuller. The applicant is Brad K. Brown. Mr. Somerville.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, so this is a request to appeal for reconsideration of the board's decision denying the variance from section 54-299.25, as you mentioned, which means that per the ordinance, the applicant needs to be able to demonstrate to the board that they either erred in their decision-making, or that there was a component of the record that was presented during that meeting that was not adequately addressed in the decision-making for the motion to deny that variance. The outcome of this evening's hearing on this item would either be one, to deny the appeal for reconsideration, which means that the denial would stand and the applicant would have a 6-month cooling off period before they could bring a subsequent variance application for the exact same request. That said, working with staff, if they were to modify that request and staff were to determine that it was substantially different enough that it's truly a new request, that would be something that they could submit within that 6-month period. Conversely, if the board does feel or find that they erred in some way, or that there was some element of the hearing that was not adequately addressed in their decision-making, then they may grant a new hearing for this item. Essentially, what that would do is that would void the denial of the variance, and the applicant would have the right to resubmit at their discretion a new application for that same request, and it would be treated as if it was a completely new hearing at that time, and would not take into account the denial from the previous hearing and record. So that is the matter that's before you. Because this is reconsideration of a board request, staff does not have a recommendation, because we're not going to recommend that you reverse yourself. The applicants have provided a narrative as to why they feel it's appropriate for reconsideration of this item. You did receive in your public comment packet opposition to a request for reconsideration that was submitted by the Historic Charleston Foundation, and another that was submitted by the Preservation Society of Charleston. And so with that, I would turn it back over to the chairman.
All right, thank you, Robert. And just to remind my fellow board members here, in accordance with section 2 of our rules and regulations for an appeal for reconsideration, to grant the appeal for reconsideration, the board must find that it misapprehended or misconceived the question or questions involved, or that it erred in its finding or disposition of the matter. So that is the backdrop. We'll hear from the owner, applicant, appellant, anybody who wishes to speak on behalf of the owner.
And Mr. Chairman, real quick, before he comes up, in case there is a request for any advice from legal counsel, we do have legal counsel. They are observing the meeting, and we will be able to, if there was a need for it, the board could go into executive session and we could call city legal. They are waiting by the phone in case they're needed to provide any legal advice relative to this appeal.
Unless we have put her to sleep.
Right.
All right, let's hear from the owner.
Thank you, Chairman Tibbles, members of the board. My name is Samuel Morris. I'm with Nelson Mullins, 151 Meeting Street, here on behalf of the applicant and property owner. We are here respectfully requesting that you all reconsider the variance request for 975 and 989 Morrison Drive, which was denied on April 14th by a vote of 4-2. To quickly reorient you all with the kind of key issue in this variance request, it is that on one hand, the federal limb law flood regulations prohibit an enclosed occupiable space on the street level on Morrison Drive. And on the other hand, the city's Upper Peninsula zoning regulations require an active ground floor use on Morrison Drive. And it's that kind of fundamental conflict of regulations that is the basis of this variance request. So we came to the board asking for a waiver, a variance to the UP active ground floor requirement in favor of an activated outdoor pocket park concept. So we're here now, and that was of course denied 4-2 on some kind of technical legal issues that were discussed throughout the case, and that are the basis of our appeal. So we are here seeking reconsideration because we think at that original hearing, the board largely agreed that there certainly is a regulatory conflict here that creates a development limitation on the property that is at least substantial in some degree, whether it rises to the level of being unreasonable is obviously up for debate. But at least that there seemed to be consensus that there is a regulatory conflict here, and it causes at least a substantial impact on the ability to develop the property.
And I think I've read your memo, and I think you hit on the two issues that were the fundamental issues underpinning the board's decision. Number one, whether a regulation that applies equally to all properties can form the basis of a hardship, or if it must be the characteristics of the property, such as size, shape, location, physical characteristics of the site, trees. We hear about grand trees a lot. We hear about conditions on the site that affect the ability to use the site, as opposed to a regulation which applies equally to all properties. So that was one area of concern. And then the second area of concern was whether or not it was an unreasonable restriction on the property to require that open area on the first floor. So we can take whichever one you want first, and we'll hear from you on.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll just take them in order. And so the first one is the idea of whether a regulation, kind of a purely regulatory issue, can rise to the level of being a hardship under South Carolina law. And the answer to that is yes. It does not have to be a purely physical characteristic, such as size, shape, and topography. You hear those terms get thrown out as examples. They're the often common cases, but South Carolina appellate law makes clear that it can arise purely out of a regulatory scenario. The key case there is one where a variance was justified based on a site's non-conforming status.
Okay,
The fact that
and I read, so I saw that you had cited several cases, and I saw that there was one case in South Carolina, and I read that case, and that's Black versus Lexington County Board of Zoning Appeals. And what I read to be the underlying factual situation on that one was, we call them after the fact variances. Apparently there was a steel fabricator who wanted to add on to his property, and Black was actually not the property owner, but the property owner was this whatever, Remco or whatever the steel fabricator was. Black appealed a decision by the Lexington County Board of Zoning Appeals to grant a variance to this steel fabricator. And Black was a neighbor, and he didn't like the fact that they had given that variance. And he said, look, this is a problem that the owner himself caused, because he had built certain improvements, including a fabrication shed within the buffer area. And so he had essentially created his own problem. He had created his own hardship, and the court applied deference to the board's decision. And we call those, when we hear those, we call those after the fact variances, when we get somebody who's done, something in violation of the zoning code and they have to come to us for forgiveness as opposed to permission. I didn't necessarily see how that specifically was relevant to our case, but maybe you can explain it.
Absolutely. So yeah, one of the bases that Mr. Black, the neighbor, appealed on was the fact that it was an invalid, the board did not have, they could not approve the variance. They did not have a legal basis to approve the variance because the site was not unique in its size, shape, or topography. That was one of the bases of the appeal.
Okay.
There's a legal error here. You approved it because, and it's not sufficiently unique. They said it's rectangular, it's flat, et cetera. And the court said, it does not necessarily, even though it is similar to its neighboring properties in its size, shape, and topography, there were two unique factors that the court pointed out. One, and they're sort of interrelated, it was an ongoing, non-conforming industrial use that was surrounded by residential property. That does not have anything to do with the topography, size, shape. It is a purely regulatory status.
Got it.
And it used that regulatory status to say that was a sufficient unique, peculiar condition on the property sufficient to justify a variance. Does it compel the board to grant the variance? No. But to say that a regulation or a regulatory purely legal status that's maybe not tied to your size, shape, and topography, it can be the basis of a
Can
variance.
create the hardship.
It can create a hardship, and most times, and we said is a confluence of both. It's some type of physical, geographical component, and that interplays with some type of regulation. And that's what we have here is that, LIMWA applies based on our physical location to relative to the Cooper River and our physical location, elevation wise. And so that interplays with the regulation and these kind of multiple factors stack up.
And I get it. And I understand that South Carolina doesn't always have the most robust jurisprudence. And so, even finding one case sometimes can be a boon. But, does the property itself have any physical characteristics that render this hardship test more attractive? In other words, is there more support than simply the regulation in this case? Or are we looking at purely, this is the regulation and this is what's causing the hardship?
Yeah, no, we definitely would posit that it is a combination of, regulatory and physical factors.
What are the physical characteristics of the property that we need
It
to
is
consider?
the whole issue, we'll get to this, is that it results in an unreasonable design, right? And that requirement, the fact that we have to then elevate the ground floor up 10 feet, that is a result of where this property sits vertically on like a plane relative to, ground floor, I guess, or sea level, I should say, where the property sits relative to sea level, and then also where it sits horizontally relative to the Cooper River, because that's what controls the wave action zone. So the waves move horizontally off of the Cooper River.
We have a map that shows I want to see the line again on the property.
Yeah, and it's only partially affected, so it's a site that has it's partially regulated, whereas most sites are all in or all
Does
out.
this one work for you? I have some other ones that
Um,
are in there.
Yeah, I like I think we just passed it by a couple slides ago, maybe a little bit further back. Yeah, we're almost there, that's it. Okay. So, I'm not trying to make your argument for you, but it's one of the physical characteristics that you might point out, the fact that portion of that parcel is marsh.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So the fact that it is largely wetland, and again, that due to its location relative to the Cooper River, it's only partially affected by the limb law. So only a portion of this building, it just leads to additional design issues
And there's limited building area.
yes.
All right. And then, is there a way? Let me ask you this. Have you all studied whether you could build a smaller structure and not be impacted by the Limois line?
I don't believe the size of the structure, it has to do with base, what's happening on the base floor.
So no matter how you site it on the site, it's going to hit that regulation?
That's my understanding. Yeah, yes.
You can't build it any smaller. and have it not impacted? I'm just asking. I don't know the answer to that question.
This would be the area of buildability to meet that, what you're asking, Mr. Chairman. You would be able, from the critical line along the limb wall line here to the street, this would become your building envelope area, and all of this would remain essentially undeveloped because all of this is within that limb wall zone. Again, for that, whatever the elevation is, you could build over it eventually, and once you came out of the elevation. But your question is there any area of the site that's developable without being affected by
Correct.
limb wall?
Yeah.
Yes, it's
Okay.
it's this portion here.
All right, I got it. Okay. So I'll let you move on, and I'm sorry for the interruptions. I'll let you move on to the other primary issue, which
Yeah,
is whether or
absolutely.
not there's an unreasonable restriction on the use of the property.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as we just closed out, we do think that there is, although it's not necessarily compelling a finding, but that there's at least a sufficient basis under South Carolina. That a regulatory or a confluence of regulatory and physical characteristics can justify that variance. So moving on to the second issue, which is the idea, and it was mentioned and cited multiple times as a basis for really struggling to approve this variance, and is the presence of alternatives that could theoretically meet the code. And so to that end, we conducted some research, and it's pretty well established in South Carolina law that the fact that there are other alternatives does not preclude the finding of an unnecessary hardship. It really is a spectrum that's context specific. And so, there's several cases where, a residential property being converted to some type of commercial use, and that, that's justified. And to say that the fact that it could have continued to be used as a commercial or as a residential use, although, you could theoretically continue to use it as that doesn't mean that you cannot approve that variance. I think several variances or several approvals today for accessory dwelling units on properties that are fully functional and profitable and livable and usable. So there was a lot of heartburn, I think, over this issue that there was a theoretically compliant design, and just wanted to come back to the board and make clear that the fact that there is some type of architectural theoretical solution doesn't mean that there's not an unnecessary hardship. It really is a kind of context specific inquiry.
For this factor, obviously, we're not dealing with the inability to see. We got a two-part test here, right? So would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization. So we're not dealing with something I think there was a concession, and I think it's still accurate to say that it wouldn't effectively prohibit the utilization of the property. The question is whether or not it would unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. And along those lines, with an unreasonable restriction, does that mean that this board has to approve what would be considered to be the highest and best use of the property?
No, it certainly does not require that the board approve that, and it certainly does not require that the board water down the unnecessary that it water down the standard at all. It's just to emphasize that it is not an immovable high bar to where you basically say, the fact that staff or the applicant has presented a theoretical option of compliance that is less desirable or out of context with the code or out of context with the local kind of as-built environment. The fact that there is one of these theoretical alternatives should not, be used against the applicant or be used as a basis to say, well, we can't approve this thing because they've admitted or staff has said that there's a theoretical alternative.
And here what we're dealing with is whether or not the first floor is open and unfinished, or whether or not it's an enclosed space, right?
That's exactly right. So as we've stated, depending on how you look at it, it could be seen as an insignificant component of the building. Oh, you could still build a building of similar height, similar density. At the same time, we would point out really there's two key factors here to say like that this really does rise. It's not just an insignificant thing, that it legitimately is an unreasonable restriction. And that is the kind of practical marketing reality of trying to fill and market a space like that in downtown Charleston when there's just a surplus of kind of ground story retail space, particularly in this area. So just there's nothing like it that we've seen, nothing successfully done in the city of Charleston quite like this. So from just like a planning and marketing economic perspective, it's just it's extremely undesirable and a daunting task from a design perspective, and then even more challenging and perhaps a probably more immediate issue is getting through the BAR and getting through architectural review process with a design that is so antithetical to the UP zoning kind of guidance of what we're trying to get at of this kind of ground story activation, walkability, pedestrian, particularly how close it is to the loan line. We still have to go to the BAR and get discretionary approval that they think this building is appropriate. And that's a very broad and vague standard. And so we can only go to them with what you all have approved. So we kind of came here asking for this variance to essentially go to the BAR with two options. Here's the kind of technically compliant option that is not really at all in alignment with the intent of the code, or really what the city wants to see here per se. And then here's the alternative option with some relief that's been given by the BZA-Z, which allows us to relax that ground floor activation requirement in favor of that kind of pocket park design. And all that
Question, Mr. Tipley.
Yeah, no, y'all ask, because I've been asking a lot.
You made a statement for approval, but really what we're doing tonight is discussing, do you get to come back and ask for approval?
That's correct.
Tonight is not about approval, it's
That's
about
exactly.
if we want to come back and hear this.
Yeah, tonight is about whether or not we, again, the standard is what I read before, whether, I think it's whether we mishap.
I just heard you say approval.
Yeah,
That's what we
yeah,
clarify.
thank you for clarifying. I totally understand that this is really just a brass.
Yeah, this is whether we misapprehended or misconceived the questions or questions involved, or whether we erred in our finding or disposition. All right, any other questions? And I'm sorry, I want to give you an opportunity to say what you need to say, but have you said it?
So, thank you.
You touched on the sort of the spectrum of unreasonableness. I wonder if you could maybe expand on that just a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So like, it's just a context specific site. You all know this, every property is unique and site specific. So the real, like the thrust of what we're here today saying is that at the last meeting, it felt like there was a sentiment from the board that this could not be approved because of the availability of the alternative, right? So we're here coming back to say the availability of the alternative does not preclude you from approving this variance. South Carolina law would support an approval of this variance on both of these factors. And there seemed to be a sentiment at the meeting last time that the board was unable legally, was kind of handcuffed. Although maybe we all agree there's a better design here that, South Carolina law, there's a bar and we can't lower that bar. And so we're coming back to say that we do think that reasonableness is more flexible than it was presented, and that in the context here, based on the trying to market this kind of elevated space is extremely difficult. And then the uncertainty at BAR, we think that there's an extremely high likelihood that we get denied at BAR and we end up back here in 6 months, and we just kind of get ping pong back and forth.
So you agree, and the South Carolina case law supports the fact that the board does have discretion to make that determination whether or not it's an unreasonable restriction on use. Okay. I know I want to open it up if anybody else has any questions. I know that the lawyer for the city is also available to us if we want to go into executive session to check with her on any legal advice, but go ahead if you've got any further questions.
I would move that we go into executive section.
Okay.
Talk about it.
Sure.
Get advice.
Seek legal advice.
Seek
counsel.
legal advice.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got a motion, move into executive session to receive legal advice. Mr. McKay has seconded that motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. We're in executive session, we'll be back.
Be clear, this is not an appeal of me, so I can go back there. Organize the.
It's the one out there.
All right, we're making yours last so long. Just here.
Silly.
So is it gonna be an office building?
No, it's multifamily.
Multifamily, and how many units are y'all trying to get?
300 in that range.
Yeah.
Where's Brad?
He couldn't make it tonight. He was working on the other concept. So,
Anything like alternate?
Guess they don't pass us. Yeah, we.
Saw the plans last time, that looked beautiful. Is it ground floor retail?
That was the whole.
I mean, it looked like there was, I don't understand that issue, but it looks like an awesome.
So this side can be retail because it's in the A zone. The one wants come this way, so we can't actually build in that side. This is the alternative design where everything underneath here is breakaway construction and you actually have to enter the bottom in the middle and go to an elevator and go up. Otherwise, you can't.
Look at how beautiful these plans are.
That's the other version.
I'm sorry.
Okay, that's the two.
No, those are well done. LS3, you did those?
Yeah.
See.
Yeah, I think he should have too.
I should have flash. Should have won us
Two
through.
side by side, so this is the one we submitted, they didn't approve. This is what you're saying we have to do. This one, we can enter. We take a handicap match to the elevator.
It's a little open air after that. Closed.
That's where they're insisting we have to dump for their retail, which is actually here. We have to go in underneath the building, all this is breakaway, you can't park in it, you can't do anything in it, so it's just rabbits and rats. Go over to an elevator and get up to that level. So now they can sit on the ground for the time. So stupid, because the county, they should. It's like an odd design.
No one's gonna ever go there.
No one will ever go there. That's the whole. that's
So you're
what
empty
it's-
space.
Yeah. But it's because it's in a one lot, which means it has wave action.
It's like Morrison Yard was able.
Get
They were
around.
able to like, they changed, feds came in. changed it, So you can't do like the removable panel stuff.
So they changed the.
You can't wait.
The land law went into effect in Charleston in 2023. But here's the crazy part, it's, that FEMA put it out, that it's adopted city by city, county by county. In South Carolina, Charleston's the only one that adopted, the mayor said that's another one I get to pay.
Which mayor did that? Was that recent?
Then, but like the whole state of Georgia, no one has adopted it in Georgia. In Florida, only 2 or 3 jurisdictions have adopted it. It's not coming on that fast. And what it is is to the B zone is when that's the waves crash. In the A zone, they used to touch each other. And they still do. A little while was because insurance started picking up on the fact that that wave, when it got to the A zone, was still at 2 or 3 feet. And it was still hitting buildings with enough power that it was causing damage that they did not have insured high enough for. So they drew this dashed line, goes over the A zone, pulls the B zone in a little bit further, and it's for 2 and 3 foot wave action. That's what it's for. But everyone's like, not adopting that. You already set the rules. What do you mean you're gonna blur them by doing this? And this city was one of the first ones to adopt it.
Under the prior.
Prior leadership.
And the wave action comes from
The wave.
the storm event.
Yes, hurricanes, it is funny because that marsh area, people would think the waves are coming that direction. No, they're coming from the Cooper River, not from the wetlands.
Right, so, but it's gotta go under a culvert. Under the.
Yeah. Yeah, and it has to cross that railroad track that's elevated.
Right.
Which I would think if they were to actually do what they call a low mark. Yeah. They were to tune in on it and look at the actual topography, they realized that waves just bump up and then diminish.
I guess that's the last ditch option here is we could do a Clomar thing, you know, we actually move the line itself.
That's a 1-year process.
But I know that's like a Ashburger and Magnolia.
It is, they did it, we did it at the tides years ago. That was a B zone premise, and you could move the B zone too with the wall. You just have enough of a wall that pushes the wave up, so it's not.
And so if you get this, then you can keep it open on the pipe.
Yeah.
And that solves your public ground
It
floor.
makes it easier for handicap access, because the other thing, when they're talking about the BAR and BZA. We have doing the TRC. The ADA accessibility lady gets a hold of this, she's gonna be like, what do you mean? It's not a front door, because they want everyone to come in the same front door, there has to be going through a portal. To get to an elevator, to get up to the lobby, as opposed to taking a gentle ramp that the general public would take to. There's lots of different things that just, the city, they have to fix their zoning ordinance to account for this.
That's what we are, that's our other kind of last ditch option we suggested. It's a text change. And they acknowledge the only other property that's getting hit by this ordinance.
To
the city. The city property,
Yeah,
over like the tech center or something.
Yeah, but what they're doing to get around, they've created themselves into a pod where they have no platform requirements.
So I mean, it's.
So they built their own, they basically said, we'll get out of there.
Yeah, and they did in fact change.
When you make the rules, you break the rules. Right. You change the paying rules.
Yeah, they realized that they need to. UP. And it just needs to be an exception.
The whole district, that should say, if you're in an A zone outside of the limit line, you're required that. If you're inside the limit line, you don't have to do it. That's all they have to do.
A few more of these.
And that'll, make it
hairy variants was that they may rather have.
Meanwhile, you guys are.
Yeah, we all know this.
Going to the 90 mil.
Yeah. Hurts to be first, right?
Then first.
Yeah, I'm just setting the set.
Well, Jasper, before precast wasn't even allowed in the city, and now it's everywhere,
And we were talking too, when we were trying to figure out how to frame all this is about, you were talking about when we change the height regulations too, that was the same thing. There's just a barrage of height variances and issues that. Eventually fix. Conflicting with those federal flood regulations of lifting elevation. The thing is, we're more unique, there's way more properties that were affected by that. That's citywide. It's true. And they're granting variances like everything. And ours is so unique. I mean, there's just not enough. Where there is like pressure. Yeah. It's only one here, one there.
That's a good point.
That's
I
like,
think
that shows
that
that it
it
is
is,
unique,
that
yeah.
their point, the thing that gets someone, it has to be so unique, but he's right. With other properties, have an issue, they move.
How unique, yeah, those accessory buildings, it's just kind of. Right.
Yeah, just because you have funky shape.
Yeah. Oh, it's like all context.
You know,
There was. We need to do my best to talk crack.
I also like the fact that you said, we're not asking you to tell us we can't do it today. We're just asking you to tell us that we have the opportunity to come back if we take both options to the citizens BAR process. Because they told us.
Yeah, our school's not gonna prove anything.
BAR kicked us to you. You give it back to them. And then we submitted to the BAR, not thinking we need a variance, and they're the ones that kicked us to the BZA. So if they kick us back, we would say, you get sick.
You're in a BAR denied. I'm gonna come back. I told you so. Because that's the better thing, they just bring both options to BAR.
BAR will be, serves a different master. They want good public record.
So they're gonna choose the right time. They already choose. What are we doing here? You know what? What are we, the battle of two borders?
Could the zoning and BAR ever have like a joint discussion?
They're good, but they're not.
Well,
They're not.
the boards don't, the staff.
Staff, yeah, right.
And with they were acting, what did they were buddy head? The BAR was saying, BZA, tell me what I could legally do.
Right.
She was just stuck in that position. Robert was like, legally, you have to do this one. She's like, well, that was like, right.
Yeah.
This was
Well, they said, don't even present that to us. They'll get a variance before you even try to present.
that's why
So
she came.
We had it in one room, we had corporation counsel, BD, Robert. Yeah, had the whole, we had a big discussion. We thought, we, had a meeting of the minds, and then got turned down.
Because these are elected officials or appointed officials. Level one, so they don't have the same administrative review for everybody else.
they're supposed, staff gives the recommendation, but they're not supposed to be. Not supposed to come out of pressure.
Yep.
Not doing it, it's hard to communication.
Good thing is that night we were disapproved. It was an alternate, it was just like leading the charge about analyzing her case.
Yeah, it's so not, that's the brand new member.
Yeah. She said, we can't approve this. Those were her words, we can't.
They should require a year of silence.
Yes.
And then I worry about anybody on these boards just to learn the ropes. She's good. Hopefully she can.
She's the one you're talking to. That would be helpful.
I'm hoping she can, well, if she's smart, she'll take it to BAR, so that's not even their problem.
What's the big deal? I'll have you up here. That's all I
Legal variance on this, because we said, which we can draw it. But you're not gonna like it, you're gonna be entering a building with, the raccoons and the rats hanging out in the
Right.
building. And then go upstairs to the occupiable space, you can't enter in a space that's conditioned. Okay, so you can legally do it, yeah, I can legally do it, I think it's the right thing to do, right, it's not an active sidewalk.
Well, that was your point, if there are alternatives, it doesn't mean you can't grant a variance.
Right. The existence, it's used all the time to deny variances, and courts have.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's not, that's a. Grant one.
I didn't know if he was trying to help or trying to confuse.
was his idea for us to come back. Yeah.
This is not getting right, giving away our time.
Correct.
You can.
Think about it, then we got one option. We take it to the VAR, and they can't deny us. If they prove it, two options, they can VAR, they can decide. So at least we know what direction we're gonna go after today, regardless. Discussion. Small building. Small. I'm thinking about that, that's almost like a take. You know,
I said, yeah, that's very good. It's, yeah.
these are getting a much bigger issue. You tell people they can't use their property. You're telling me I can't use my property, but it's part of it's in a limbo. I mean, I could build on it. You're telling me I have to put conditions based on the front, but FEMA says I can't. Right. So you're gonna tell me I can't build. Right. That's a.
Yeah.
Tough enough. Yeah. They start thinking down that path, we're gonna have a bigger problem.
Yeah, because there are older properties that are entirely within one.
Yeah, completely. I mean, that means we could tell the city they can't build anything.
Yeah, no workforce out.
No workforce out. If you can't build anything there, you're in one.
Because they have that whole site.
Yeah,
They're
they're all in.
Bad.
Yeah.
I think he was just more saying like, oh, well, you have a portion of your site that's, you could. It's the same thing that there's development alternatives on the site as opposed to their point.
What if you just built the wall? You can't do that because it walls off your property.
Wall has to be breakaway.
It's not cheap.
And
Built it.
yeah,
You're talking about a wall to stop the
like a
wave?
berm.
Oh, yeah, like a berm.
zoning ordinance says that we can do that.
It's true, it's interesting.
It says we
That type
have,
of structure at all.
we have to
Yeah.
use, we have to conceal the parking with 30 feet of commercial conditioned space. And the funny part is that it's to conceal the parking. We're not concealing anything. We're looking under the building at breakaway construction, and then we're not using 30 feet, and then we're conditioning up here.
Yeah, it's actually less concealed with
And that's, it's
conforming.
it's a cluster technicality is that result. So, cause yeah, they say, cause it's on it's still technically the ground floor. That's the,
Yeah, it's just.
Right.
So you work with Jay?
That's right. I have Dan St. Clair. Jay helped us buy the 6 days site. Scotch.
okay, very good.
So he was very crafty in finding a person to include a hyper.
The little crickets.
Deep.
Yeah, little cricket.
On now. Great history, but
Are you all gonna name the bar in there, the little cricket?
Idea.
that idea has been thought of many times.
There's gonna be a drink in there called the little cricket.
Oh,
Sure.
A little gold cricket somewhere.
yeah.
It'll be a beer and a brown bag.
Yeah. Where's Waldo? There's the cricket. But there was this height restriction, deed restriction that had been put on there. And we were like, I mean, we could fit the hotel under it, but it shaved off 2 feet that were really valuable 2 feet. And we found this guy as an assisted living home in Florida somewhere. And I don't know how Jay sourced it, but he had a phone call with them and the guy was like discombobulated one day and then the next day we FedEx that guy a $5,000 check and that thing was off the DA thing.
Yeah, right.
He signed the paperwork, yeah.
He's still living manager of the
Exactly.
LLC that.
I mean, if we waited
Developed it.
3 weeks, we might have missed the chance.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. Just in the nick.
No. No.
Yeah, that's, gosh, I mean, getting those deed restrictions, stuff, that's some of the fun part, where you can doing some cold calling,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
You know, that guy that was up there before, I don't know how the hell they divided that property up into three parcels like that.
I think it was
a sliver.
I think it was a double, it was like so it was one big rectangle and then they did a double flag lot. So I think that whoever it was divided into three properties.
Yeah.
But that one little rectangle, the first flag lot that's built out right now, and then the big flag lot. So I think it was 1, 2, 3. I was got approved 2,700 square foot lot. He's like.
I'm sure he got it.
gets buried. And he knows that technically that is a taking, to deny that variance. is a taking. Because it's only zoned for residential.
Also owns the neighboring property.
Yeah, that is where it's a problem, is that they just don't just recombine it with your neighbor's property. Yeah, recombine it, that's the solution.
That is.
Oh, he owns the
Yeah.
1033 lot?
Yes. Recombine it.
I thought they asked him that. He said, I don't know.
He dodged it.
He dodged it for a few minutes.
Oh, my God.
He goes affordable housing, LLC on that lot.
Yeah, and they're like, and Tim was picked up on that. He said, or just not you.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
They can't recombine a lot, like that's getting into taking, but essentially if a lot is zoned for residential only. And setbacks on the lot size are so small that you can't build a lot on it, it is variance or taking, those are the two paths, and that's like very well established.
It should never have been allowed to be,
Mhm.
cut up in the first place.
Yeah, how that happened.
I found it's much harder to divide a lot than it is to combine a lot. At least, like, I remember we dealt with this out of Wild Dunes years ago. We were trying to, because if you have a property line, you can't have a building go across it.
Right.
Yes. You have to have setbacks on it, but if you abandon the line, you can put a building there.
Yes.
So that house, the way it's funny how it's drawn on there, the one that's been torn down, because it was sitting partially on two lots.
Exactly. Either that was illegally constructed
Or done.
erroneously constructed.
I think it was constructed when it was a single lot.
Right.
And then who would have allowed that property line to go in there with a building that you're straddling? Somebody needs to get.
Planning department back in 20, 30, 40 years ago.
Yes, that's bad due diligence.
It's confusing. I don't know of any zoning code in the modern era that allows 2,500 square feet residential. That's.
We looked at a, in Mount Pleasant. That was owned by stuff. Old generation.
Yeah.
And every map you look at was different.
Yeah.
And all the houses, I mean, it's like they put a bunch of houses on the table and there were no property lines, and then they put property lines on them, and all of them were not.
Yeah.
Consistent.
And there's things that are gifted and inherited.
Oh, yeah.
And deeded and percentages.
And they were all in contention, you know, I don't know if you have a still process here for,
Quiet title.
yeah, the quiet title, but, what's the process? I'm trying to think of Massachusetts or anywhere where you go to the court, if you don't have a clear trust or, you know, will
Yeah.
giving the
Settle
process.
trust.
Yeah, and just that whole process was like, it wasn't like they were one or two wrong. It was like there were 7 generations.
Well, that's the heirs right stuff here.
Yeah,
It's just
exactly.
such a pain, you know,
Yeah.
all of that. People who have no idea, people who just don't care.
Yeah. Then the occasional one want to make a buck.
Oh, yeah. All that. Like a jury, they said longer the better.
Brad just asked, how's the BZA turnout?
Oh,
They
yeah.
had an executive session. We are patiently waiting.
As you're going through this so thorough. They're not making a decision about the case, they're just.
Apparently it's a big deal to undo something. It is.
Well, I've never in my, I've done 100+ variances, I've never even asked for one. From my denial. When Jay asked if I never even considered. And but they, I haven't seen any city actually has a process. 5 days. I've never seen one successful.
Well, don't count your chickens.
It's very
Let's see what happens.
I think we made a really good case.
I think they have sandwiches back there.
That's what they're doing.
Catering.
Maybe so. I come out here. a little tipsy.
Yeah, right.
Got wine back there.
That's right.
She said those houses are going for 600 to 800,000.
In that neighborhood. Wow. Did you see some of that? Some of the houses are pretty big back there. That
Are those newer ones or?
newer ones, yeah.
There's some with pools. I was looking at them.
Yeah,
So there's some nice. But it's a great piece of land.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
It's so pretty back there.
It's got that long pier.
Well,
Get out on the
so
pier.
if you look at an aerial, often see that's the railroad. Used to connect on the city. The Greenway, connect back to the Greenway.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So that was like a low clearance crossing over
Yeah.
the Cougar or something.
Over the Asher River that we go to the city.
Hundreds of spec builders that are coming up.
I'm sure. Yeah, I mean, he's probably one of many.
Yeah.
Seems pretty in
Yeah, I think he knows that.
For first name basis with the HOA.
It's pretty good. Well, I think his way out. Street.
Yeah.
That's what we get that willing to see.
Right, Mr. Chairman, I'm gonna just ask that we give a couple members minutes.
Yep, and then we'll need a motion to come out of the event.
Yeah.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to exit executive session.
Make a motion, we exit executive session.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, Ms. Kraft seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? No one's opposed. We are now out of executive session. No action was taken. No decision was made. One thing that I did not request is there's anybody in opposition to the appeals. And I don't see a representative of the Historic Charleston Preservation Society, although we did receive oppositions in writing from those organizations. Seeing no one else, I'll open it up for any further discussion or questions or whatever the board wishes to do.
I think there's, it's a challenging question. I think one of the key aspects of our requirements, I've closed it, of course, I'll put back to it. When we consider an appeal is whether we misconstrued or misapprehended the question, and not entirely fairly certain that we did not rise to that. The reason I say that is that the board really has a considerable amount of discretion when it considers the unreasonableness of issues before us. I'm not sure that not sure it rose to that level in this case.
I can read it for you here. To grant the appeal for reconsideration, the board must find that it misapprehended, misconceived the question or questions involved, or that it erred in its finding or disposition matter.
So I guess on the basis of misapprehension or misconceiving the question, to me, the question was fairly straightforward, and it really more leans towards whether we erred in our findings and disposition. And again, I don't think that that is the case here. We understood the issues. We had the discretion to make decisions based on the information before us, and I don't think we received anything new that would lend us to change that position. So I will make a motion to deny the appeal for reconsideration.
All right, so there's a motion on the floor to deny the appeal. Is there any further discussion?
I'll second it.
All right, Ms. Grass has seconded the motion. We'll go ahead and put it to a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion to deny the appeal is unanimous. I'll say that I thought you did a very good job, sir, in the presentation. Dan, is that your name?
Dan,
yeah. And you know, I think the first issue is a really tricky one. I do think that it lends itself to a certain amount of discretion as you combine factors, including physical characteristics with the regulations. And I, you know, the whether or not there's an unreasonable restriction on the use. You know, when we try to handicap what BAR may or may not approve from a design perspective, we start to veer off of our mission in terms of what we're doing on a zoning level. But I think they were very close questions, and I thought the presentation was excellent, very clear, and I think ultimately, you know, we understand that with every decision we make regarding a variance, that we have considerable discretion that works best in us. We appreciate your time and appreciate your good arguments, and good luck to you.
Mr. Chairman, just for the record, so with that decision, that means that the variance denial stands. The applicant is fully entitled to move forward to the BAR with a compliant project. They are entitled to come back before this board with the same application in 6 months from now, should they choose. Further, if there is a substantial change to the variance request, such that staff finds that it's a new application, they may submit that at any time that they would need to as they move forward with their project.
Thank you. All right. The next and final item on our agenda B 0 Rutledge Boulevard, Charlestown, Council District 8, TMS number 457-11-04-142, zoned STR, BZA 2026-02365, requesting an appeal for reconsideration of the board decisions, denied variance from section 54-301. The owner applicant is Bradley Baker. Mr. Summerfield.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, so this is your second appeal for reconsideration of the board decision denying the variance from section 301 or 54301 in this instance. This was for the property here at 0 Rutledge. It was a request regarding the expansion of a shed that impacted the setbacks. The staff had recommended denial. The board did deny that request. The applicant has asked for reconsideration of that request as outlined in their submittal. They also have 4 comments that were submitted in support of their request for reconsideration. I will note, though, that these 4 requests do not include addresses, and based on a review of the requests, do not necessarily indicate that they are folks that are in the area, nor do any of the requests necessarily identify grounds for reconsideration. That said, this is a request to reconsider the board's decision. As such, staff does not have a recommendation as to what the board should do on this request. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Robert. Do we have the applicant?
But not least. My name's Shayna Smith. I'm here to talk about this motion to reconsider. Bradley is here as well. Thank you all for hearing it. I'm on the county BZA, so I know these nights can be very long and agonizing. I appreciate your attention to this matter. So at the April 14th meeting, our application was, I think, misunderstood, and I understand what I'm asking you to do is say that you were wrong, so I understand that's a big deal. But the way that it was presented was that we were asking to construct a new shed. The shed is already constructed. It was an old shed that we did a 26 square foot expansion on. It's a very minor expansion, but nonetheless, it is an expansion. But because of that, the way that it was presented, when it came up, our neighbor was in opposition. And when it came up, oh, wait a minute, the shed has already been built. There was a bit of an uproar, and we had to go over again that, well, the shed is actually already there. And why are they asking after the fact for a variance request? It's probably a topic that I should discuss if this is reversed. It just created a lot of confusion amongst the board. Also, like I said, this is a variance request for just a 26 square foot addition to something that was already there. A significant portion of the discussion that night was around a temporary air conditioning prop. In order to fix the roof, because it was falling in, we had to prop up the air conditioning unit. The variance request was about the setbacks, not the air conditioning unit. And the majority of the discussion that night was about the dangerous props. It was an air conditioning unit on 2 2x4s, and our neighbor was saying that it could potentially fall into his kitchen window. And so a lot of the discussion was about that. It was also a lot of discussion about our fence, which was permitted and built correctly. Their property is actually 2 feet over the property line in some areas. So with our shed being 6 inches closer, it of course appears very close to their house because their house is over the property line. They can't even access their house without coming onto our property. So it's a little bit of a unique situation because I don't think that normally you have a house that's built over the property line. So things are very tight, as they are in a lot of downtown. So because of these errors and the emphasis on things that were outside of the scope of the application, we feel that it resulted in undue prejudice to our application. And we are asking that the board reverse their decision and give us a second opportunity to go over our application and only focus on the setbacks. And if you want me to go over the hardships, again, I can do that now, but I'm just trying to focus on reconsideration.
What was the vote?
I'm sorry,
What was the result of the vote? What?
I think it was 4-1. Somebody was had to leave early.
Probably me.
Yeah, I think it was you that had to leave.
I don't remember it, and I think I would have remembered such an interesting application. Okay. So do we have public comments on this at all?
We
have-
do. We have 4 comments that were submitted via our online site from folks who are, again, they don't identify addresses, and based on the context within their messages, do not appear to be neighboring residents and don't necessarily speak to the conditions that the applicant for the appeal has identified, and more, they're just seem to be generally in support of the improvement that was made at the property.
Okay.
The immediate neighbor was present and submitted, I believe, public comment.
Yeah.
He did submit an extra comment that wasn't submitted on time, and he read it aloud during the hearing, which I think also maybe was a little bit unfair.
Okay. This is an after the fact approval.
It is, so we hired a contractor, and I think the county ordinance, which is anything under 120 square feet, doesn't have to have a zoning permit. I think there was a misunderstanding about that. We weren't trying to break the rules. Obviously, I'm on the Board of Zoning Appeals, so I understand the importance of the rules. So we were following his lead, and we've done renovations on the house and always had permitting, and it was truly a misunderstanding. We had a building permit, just not the zoning.
Since part of your or part of this request tonight, you've made the argument that you felt like, I guess some comments were more about the HVAC. Did you feel like that was more from the community comments or the board?
The board, so because the board was asking about, well, how is it propped up, and is there a covering around it from the street, because he brought that up. The board didn't touch much on the fence, but nonetheless, there was definitely conversation about that unit, which just isn't part of the application.
I don't remember it being part of the decision though, as far as why we made the decision we did. I don't believe that we took that into consideration since it wasn't part of the application.
Okay.
That's why I was just asking if you could.
If I remember correctly, I concur with you. I think the AC support was understood to be a temporary element.
Mhm.
It's not part of our
I think you
consideration.
make that clear. It's temporary.
And it has been fixed. We called and asked, even though we had a stop work order, we did put it back down, so he shouldn't be worried about it.
With respect to the argument that there was a misapprehension on whether or not it was a new shed or after the fact. Do you know whether or not the neighbor who was opposed recognized then or recognizes now that it is an existing condition today?
I mean, so he's a new neighbor. When we renovated the shed, somebody else lived there who we were very friendly with. And then he moved in and used our driveway as a construction site for 4 months, and then decided to complain about it. So he knew it was there when he bought the house. So it's definitely an existing condition because it was there when he purchased the property.
But does he know that he was arguing for you to remove a portion of the shed?
I think he was arguing to fix the HVAC.
If you're gonna speak.
Sorry,
on it,
I apologize.
Yeah, he was.
I don't mind hearing from you at all, but if you do, you gotta speak into the mic because that was the way.
Sorry.
He was arguing about the HVAC unit because it was
On 2x4.
on 2x4s, could fall into his kitchen window, and also was an eyesore, obstruction of his view, although properties there's no view of an alleyway. I mean, the view is the side of our house, so it's an interesting argument.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just to clarify, so it was my initial presentation that was the confusing, because and I apologized, I believe during the presentation. Initially, I started to present this based on a different property. And so I had started the presentation as if this was a request for a new shed in a different configuration than the old shed. So to the degree that there was confusion in terms of the presented material, that was completely on me. We did course correct that based on Chris had identified, no, I'm not talking about the right property. We course corrected, made it clear on the record that it was in fact an existing shed. The requested variance was related to an after the fact approval request. And from a staff perspective, we did not get into about the air conditioning. The only comment I think from the staff perspective with regard to the air conditioning was that with the denial, the expectation would be that everything gets put back the way it was in the configuration it was prior to the construction, which would include moving the air conditioning. But that was the only part the air conditioning played from any part of the staff presentation. But in the initial start of the presentation, I did start to present this as if it was a new construction. And then staff did correct that in the process of the hearing.
Okay. Let me ask you this. If there is a denial of the appeal, what is their time frame for having to restore the shed to their previous?
So we would work with them. Normally, we would request that they complete that within, since this is not a life safety issue, we would give them 90 days to come into compliance before we would move into any kind of enforcement.
And they would have to wait, but they would have to wait 6 months to reapply.
Correct. And because it isn't a life safety issue, I would entertain a conversation with the applicant if there was going to be an interest in reapplying for the variance. But we would be very tight on that. Like once that 6 months moment hit, they would have to reapply and be back in the system. Otherwise, they would immediately need to revert the structure to its modified state. Because if there was an interest in reapplying for the variance because they thought they would have a better presentation, a better case in 6 months from now, because this is not a life safety issue it's not been identified as a life safety issue, we would open a case, a compliance case, but we would stay any action on that case pending the outcome of a reapplication to the board when they become eligible to do so.
What was the city's original recommendation on this application when it came forward?
Recommendation for denial. That this was exacerbation of an already tight situation that we just couldn't find for a hardship related to the necessity. And they already had a shed, so again, it wasn't as if there was no allowance being made to be able to have a shed. This was an existing shed. They could have done improvements to the shed within the existing footprint that would have been acceptable. But the expansion, relocation, modification, however you want to characterize it, exacerbating the proximity to the property line and the neighboring structure, we couldn't make the finding.
Okay. Are you an attorney? Okay. And so my guess is that if they appeal a decision, an adverse decision, that would toll their compliance duties.
Yes, yes, if they were to appeal to my Lord Jesus.
Circuit Court.
Circuit Court, thank you. Yes, if they were to file appeal to Circuit Court to appeal the denial, then that would stay any enforcement action. Again, it's not a life safety related issue.
Right. Now, let me ask my board members. would it have made a difference had the neighbor consented? Or would it have been still a denial vote?
I get denied because we got 0 lot lines downtown. They improved the shed that was already there, and it's 26 square feet. Everything else is just posturing. That was just my thought.
It makes it like 6 inches closer to his house. It's very. And we really just wanted to make it look pretty.
I must add to that. When we
Okay, go ahead
called
and
the city,
identify yourself.
Bradley Baker,
Thank
the resident owner, she's also the resident owner.
Okay.
When we called the city, the feedback was anything under 120 square feet didn't need like approval. Our architect, our contractor said it. So we thought we were helping the neighborhood by making something very ugly, something that we thought was beautiful.
It was like
truly
falling down,
beautiful.
like
I
a
mean,
plywood shed.
passing, it had wood rot and mold. And what we did was we added and made it 27 square feet bigger to put our baby stroller in. I mean, and I apologize that we didn't, go about it, we just did what we thought was right. And when I say every single neighbor, we just started asking them for letters of support today because we're yesterday, and they all said, we would love to. It looks beautiful. Thank you for helping. We really appreciate it because we walk by the beautiful neighborhood, and in this neighborhood, you look in people's backyard, you're like, wow. And we were like, we want to have a little bit of a wow factor. So the only people that had a problem with it were our next door neighbors.
Who bought it when it was already done?
And I don't believe that their problem was the shed. I believe their problem was the HVAC. My thoughts.
I think that when we discussed it though, I just remember that trying to justify like the hardship. What is the hardship for approving the variance? I think that was like a question.
He did the initial presentation. I had the baby and I had to leave early, so we didn't have childcare that night. There's some things that weren't touched on that I probably would have touched on, but this is for the reconsideration, not for me to represent that case, but there definitely were some things that I could have touched on.
To your point, though, if there's information we didn't have, that would cause us to consider a different alternative, and this is the time for reconsideration to present that information.
So it's a corner lot, and I believe I can tell you because I have the plat right here, 38 feet across. It's a duplex, and the shed is a duplex, and of course it was constructed like I think in the 70s, so it was already there when we bought the house, and because of that, there's not much room to reconfigure. There were like these concrete walls adjoining to the property next door, and it's a really tight space. And because we were having a child, we needed a little extra space to store our bikes and strollers so they didn't get damaged. And so that being said, with their property being 1.5 to 2 feet over the property line at points, I didn't know that at the time. I hired Howard Yates to do some title work for me, and he found that. So that's additional information that we didn't have that day. And due to the shed being a duplex, there's not really anything we could do there, because if we took that shed and moved it somewhere else, then our duplex neighbor that it's connected to would have had to reconfigure her whole shed, and that really wouldn't be fair to her.
And isn't the shed, just remind me, can you see the shed from the street?
You can see part of the shed from the street. So our front air conditioning unit has like, is it called lattice? Like this? It's blocks part of it. So you can see, like if you peek around our driveway, you can see it, but it's not like super visible.
If we were to grant a new hearing and just say that they were approved or whatever, is this a BAR issue since it can be seen from the street?
Fred, yes. Yes, absolutely. That would have been another point of consideration with the after the fact situation, is that because this is a part of the property that can be seen from the street and it is a structural element, any modification would require some level of BAR review, whether that's a staff review, or if that's something that actually would go to the board, that's an evaluation that they would have to do based on the changes. And I'll be honest, I don't know enough of the history to know if this ever went to BAR for anything. I don't think it did.
I would think that shed was
Yeah.
original to the house. It was very old. and it
Right,
was
that,
falling
yeah, that does bring another interesting complication. I can't make the motion, but I think a brief, very brief consultation on legal issues.
I make a motion that we go
Very
into
brief.
executive session for advice from counsel.
There's a motion, is there a second? Second, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or opposed? We'll be right back.
I sat down with the VAR.
You did?
Yeah,
About this?
I went to like every single table and I talked to them and they all said you should be fine.
You talked to the VAR about it?
Yeah. Talked to everybody and they all were like, yeah, you're fine. Just go up in front of the BZA and
Should we tell them that?
I mean, I don't remember exactly what happened, but everyone said, like, you're fine, is what I was, remember, like, here, do this, do that, go in front of the BZA, so.
I can't imagine denying it based on what it was before.
Joseph. I'm sitting here at the BZA. Yeah, we're still here, what are they doing right now, Shana?
An executive session.
They're in executive session. Shit. For the last people here. The one before they're in there for like 30 minutes. And now no, like the one before, but then they just went back. This stuff is crazy. You want me to give you a shout when I get in the car? All right, I'll holler at you soon. All right, I'll talk to you soon. Jesus.
He doesn't even know me to apply. I had to at least try. No, I haven't lost all.
I did it. I did it. Bill. Jappy. I think Japp was like, I was in here. I would have given it to him. So that's 3. Because this guy, John, doesn't. So that's
No, because he just said. I did.
it would be 3 to 3. Maybe they'll say, we'll hear it out one more time. And then we can get action papers. No.
It was going. You're fast. Yeah. All right. Thank you. All right, bye. Okay, we'll need a motion to come out of executive session.
I'll make a motion to get into the executive session.
All right, is there a second?
We'll second it.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, none opposed, we're out of executive session. No action was taken, no decision was made. Further questions or discussion?
I'll make some comments. I think I appreciate your presentation. I don't feel like there was any new information presented that we were not aware of in the last meeting. Even some of the supplemental stuff you provided, I think is pretty well in line with what we understood of the project. So as far as whether we misapprehended or misunderstood the question, I don't think that is the case. And likewise, the idea that there was an error in our finding or disposition, I don't think is the case either. So I will make a motion to deny the appeal for reconsideration.
All right, there's been a motion made on the floor first for the denial of the appeal. Is there a second?
No.
Right. Motion made, properly seconded to deny the appeal for reconsideration. Any further discussion? All right, we'll put it to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? One is opposed. The motion passes to deny the reconsideration. And so there are other avenues that pursue at this point. And wish you the best, and I'm sorry that it's come to this, just in terms of the neighbor problem.
Mr. Chairman, for the record, who was the?
Mr. Goodwin voted no.
So, like with the last one, just for the record, so with the denial of the reconsideration, that leaves us in the position where, because this is an existing, compliance, matter at this point, I do need to know, if you plan to appeal the original denial by the board to circuit court, that will stay it. Or if it is your intention to just wait out the 6-month cooling off period to resubmit. At that point, I will work with you all to, again, we'll still have the open case, but we won't take any active enforcement action till that 6-month window has concluded. And then if you submit an application for the board to hear a new variance related to the shed, then that will also continue to stay it until you get a determination from there.
If we wait for 6 months,
Mhm.
that application that we would submit needs to be different from the first one?
No, that can be the exact same application. And then you can make your updated presentation. And we like little people, so, you know, at that point, your little person is 6 months older, so, you know, maybe. Maybe exhibits or something, but, yeah, so if you wait the 6 months, there's no need to make changes. A change would be if you want to come back sooner than the 6 months, you'd have to demonstrate that there's a significant change from your request. And I'm not quite sure how you would do that with this particular application, but willing to have that conversation if you guys think there's some modification that you're gonna propose that would make the request different than what was previously acted on.
Okay.
Okay?
So I think we'll wait the 6 months. That's okay with me.
Okay, so if I can get that sent to the BZA as an official thing that is your intention to reapply once the 6-month cooling off period is, then I will append that to your case, which will then mean that in 6 months from now, we're gonna check to see if you've submitted. If you have, great, no action. If not, we're gonna say, hey, we need your application immediately, and then whatever.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you guys.
thank you.
Thank you.